13.
O'clock.
Well, hey, everybody. Here we are back again on this Wednesday night. It's raining outside.
Yeah.
And we have a bummer of a topic, I'm sorry to tell you.
Yeah, me and Jen were sitting here discussing the outline of this case, and I'm just like, man, this shit here fucking gets me. Ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah. When it's a stranger's, it's one thing, but when it's like the kid's mom that's doing it, it's just like, ugh.
I mean, I've spent the last few days researching these two cases, and I'm gonna say right now, I was just telling Tom, I was like, spoiler alert, we'll just talk about Susan Smith first. I don't really feel bad for her because of reasons I'll get into later. Andrea Yates, though, the more I read about her, I was like, that woman, man, she has some severe mental problems. And she really, really tried to get help for it, and it just didn't work out, which we'll get into in a little bit, too. So I kind of, I'm not justifying what she did or anything like that, because what she did was fucking horrific. But all I'm going to say is psychosis, it's a bitch. And she really should have got more help than she got.
From that case, what always got me is that it's been a long time since I've heard it, but I remember somebody saying what her testimony was about what the children were saying while she was killing them, and I was just like, oh, man.
Yeah, I like hearing about the
man.
both of the cases, like the actual kids, and the Susan Smith one's pretty horrible too, like how they died, because I could imagine that, and I was like, holy fucking shit. That must have been awful.
The kids were trying to please the mom and fucking beg for forgiveness and shit. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah, it's
man.
terrible. But yeah, so.
What are you going to do? You know what I mean? If I was there, I'd try to save the kids. But
yeah, I mean,
I wasn't there. Nothing I could do. There's something about it where like it makes me mad. Like I wasn't there to save it. You know what I mean? That kind of shit. I don't know. I think most guys are like that. Probably most people are like that. You kind of get mad at yourself that you weren't there in some way to prevent it.
Yeah, I feel that about a lot of cases that I read about, to be honest. Whether it's kids or, I mean, I guess especially when it's more, but yeah, pretty much anybody that's kind of vulnerable in any way.
Right.
Like you always kind of feel like, fuck, man, if only I'd been there, I could have done something. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, the perpetrator does it on purpose, though, so you're not there. So you can't. That's why they do it that way.
Right. Oracle says, hi, Oracle, by the way. Unfun fact, I was living in Charleston the year Susan Smith murdered her sons and worked just down the street from MUSC where the autopsies were performed. That was a very creepy day. The whole city knew the boys were there. Yeah, it's fucked up. And I don't think, as far as I'm aware, like at the trial, because, not to be gross or anything like that, but the kids had been in the water for 9 days. And so their bodies were very decomposed. And they were actually, I think they were actually going to show the photos to the jurors, but they ended up not showing. They basically just showed them like the legs and stuff like that, because they're just like, the whole thing would have just been like too much. That would have just been a fucking image that you'd never get out of your head. You know what I mean? Like, obviously some people had to really look at them, but they didn't end up showing the entire photos to the jury because they thought that would be too fucked up.
Too prejudicial against them.
Yeah, well, that was the thing that they used. So the thing now, both of these women are still alive. Susan Smith is still in prison. She's actually eligible for parole next year, in 2024. So we'll see how
They'll never let that woman out.
So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, and especially because she's been a little bit of a troublemaker in prison, to be honest with you. And Andrea Yates is in a mental hospital and does not appear to want to be let out. Because they do actually like come to her every so often and be like, hey, you can make a petition like for release and stuff like that. And she always waives the right to do that. So.
No, she's got nowhere to go either.
That too. But I do feel like she, just from like kind of a read through of what she was like, I kind of feel like she thinks that she hasn't been punished enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, there's no coming back from that one.
No, there's really not.
No.
And I'm going to say too that I think a lot of, there was a lot of factors that went into what happened in that situation. But I think one of the factors was kind of an extremist religious. I don't want to call it a cult, although it was very culty. Her and her husband were involved in. So, and the beliefs of this religion were maybe contributed to what ended up happening, like just the whole situation.
That's not an excuse, though.
No, I'm not saying no. I just said that was a factor that probably like contributed. There was a lot of things that contributed.
I think the main thing, she was fucking crazy.
Well, she's very mentally ill. She is very mentally ill. She had actually been diagnosed many, many times when she was younger, and she, her family also, it ran in her family, suicide and stuff which is weirdly similar to Susan Smith's family too. So these two women, they, in a lot of ways, they're kind of similar, and interestingly, the FBI evidently has a profile of mothers who kill their children, and both of them could be both of them like kind of describe both of these women. But the thing about it is that I think there's a difference in the motivation for sure, because like I said, I don't really, Susan Smith had some mitigating factors too, but I don't really feel bad for her because she seemed to, despite what she said, I think she had more narcissistic reasons for doing what she did, whereas Andrea Yates was just very, very sick and had delusions about her children and about herself and things like that contributed to it. So, I mean, I think Susan Smith kind of knew what she was doing, whereas Andrea Yates, I'm not really sure. Like, she knew what she was doing, but I'm not really sure that she really thought through, like, the consequences of what she did, I guess. You know what I mean?
She wasn't in full control of her faculties.
Yeah. And a jury agreed later on. They actually did. And this was in Texas, which has, like, really, really harsh... Like, it's really, really difficult to get an insanity defense in Texas. But she did. Because her original conviction was just life in prison. But then it was overturned later for a reason which we'll get into later. And then the second jury actually did find her insane. Like, she didn't... Like, she knew what she was doing was wrong, kind of, but she didn't... Like, she wasn't in her right mind, like, when she did it. So they just sent her to a mental hospital, which honestly, like, knowing what I know about her is probably the best place for her.
Mental hospitals are worse than prisons. You go in there, fucking, you're gonna, if you went in there sane, you'd come out crazy.
Well, she seems to be, at least according to a fairly recent interview of somebody that like went and goes to visit her. Mm-hmm. They said she seems to be doing pretty good in there. Mm-hmm. But like I said, she wasn't doing too good on the outside. Like, she was having a hard time.
Nothing but lunatics in there.
Well, she's at they
moved her to a fucking
they transferred her. Yeah,
okay.
They transferred her to like a lower security one because they determined she's not a risk to anyone.
Yeah.
But she doesn't seem to want to get out. She seems pretty content where she's at. And you know, she has people come visit her and shit like that. So, like I said, it's just a really sad case all around, and I think that in that case it could have been prevented. Susan Smith, I don't really know, because I feel like she had different reasons for doing what she did than Andrea Yates did. But Camp Guy said, I gotta check these gals out, find out about their backgrounds. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but if you want to like do a deeper dive, actually, if you go on Murderpedia, which is a real good site, which has like just lists and lists of all the murderers, not just serial killers, like all the murderers. There's like a really, really long write-up of Susan Smith. It's like a fucking novel, man. So I read like all of that. I read all the shit about her and stuff like that. The one about Andrea Yates isn't as long, but somebody did write this big, huge, long like essay about like did like a deep dive about her life and her motivations and all this other kind of stuff. Oracle says, I can feel sorry for Andrea Yates, but Susan Smith, I'd push the button. Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as you.
I remember that.
At first, like, I started reading about Susan Smith, and I'm like, well, she had some kind of shady stuff happen, too. But then, like, the more I read about her, and, like, the more that other people, like, said, oh, she said this and that and the other thing, I was like, yeah, fuck her. But, you know what I mean? But Andrea Yates, I do kind of feel bad for her. Even though that is no way justification for what she did, because it was horrible. But, she, like I said, she's just a very, very sick person. She's a very sick person. So, yeah. Camp Guy says, I'm lucky I've been able to tame my own demons without major upheaval anymore. Yeah, I mean, you know. Alright, let's see. Yeah, Oracle was saying that she was in South Carolina, like, when they were doing when the Susan Smith thing happened. She's like, and then I moved to Texas in time for the Andrea Yates case. Yeah, it's like it was following you around. High Desert 004 said some Christian groups are more like death cults. Yeah, the one that Andrea Yates and her husband were involved in was a little bit like that. It was, like I said, it wasn't a cult, but it was kind of like a street preacher with followers, and he had like some really weird like fundamentalist beliefs, and they were like really into that. I mean, her husband Rusty was more into it than she was, I feel like, but she was really into it too. And she was, again, and I feel like this is kind of a common thing to both of the women, is that they're both people pleasers, in that they wanted to do, particularly Andrea, like she really wanted to do everything to like make her husband happy, even though she maybe didn't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? But we'll get into that a little bit too. Yeah, Oracle said Susan Smith worked too hard at first to pretend she didn't do it. Yeah, and if you watch... See, I couldn't determine, because I was watching a documentary about Susan Smith, and they had like a lot of footage of her, because obviously, like I said, after she first killed her kids, she very famously said that a black man had carjacked her and driven off with her babies. And she kept that up for like 9 days.
Yeah, and every cop was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, they said the cops were suspicious like pretty much from the second day of the investigation.
It's not how carjackings go.
Well, there was a lot of other factors too. Yeah. But if you watch footage of her, like, because she was all over the media, like her and her husband like crying about, you know, bring our babies back and stuff like that. Like, and the whole time she knows they're dead. And I don't know if it's just because I know that she killed them, but her shit is so fake.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my, like that. Like, she sounds like she stopped. And actually, I was like, now, do I just think it sounds fake because I know that she did it? So I'm just kind of like, oh, obviously fake. But then I was reading a thing where, like, one of the cops that was interviewing her said, yeah, she would make sobbing noises, but she wasn't crying. Like, there was no tears. So he thought that was, like, super fishy.
There have been cases where carjackers have carjacked cars, and accidentally there were kids in the back. And
I've heard of that.
In all the cases that I've remembered, the carjacker drives a couple miles, fucking parks the car and jumps out.
Yeah, because they're like, well, he didn't want to get involved in that.
He doesn't want the kids.
Right. Yeah, that wasn't the whole. He just wanted.
That's
the car.
not what it was for. Not what he took the car for.
Right. So yeah, and it's like, shit, I don't want to get into even more trouble if I get caught.
He doesn't want the kids at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what's he going to do with
them? Right.
He's not going to fucking just throw them out of the car. So they just fucking park the car and run, and then they try to carjack another car.
Yeah. Oracle says the funny thing about Susan Smith saying it was a black man, they had her work with a forensic artist. Yeah, that's right. And the forensic artist was super suspicious of her too, which we'll get into in a little bit. To draw a picture of the suspect looked a lot like her husband with some Afro-American features. Well, one of the things that kind of tipped the cops off to the beginning was that the forensic artist said that, you know, the description she gave of the dude was like super vague.
Yeah.
It was basically like, oh, just a tall black man with like a plaid coat on and stuff like that. And even the forensic artist was just like, this, like somebody that's actually been carjacked. And this woman that had did the forensic artist drawing, she's like, you know, I've worked with hundreds of people that have been there. And she's like, and this was not, she's like, most people, if you've been carjacked, you look the dude right in the face, are a lot more specific. They're like, but she was super vague, but then really specific about some details that didn't like work out all that good. So like I said, even though, you know, people kind of went along with it, and the cops were like, yeah, we had to follow up on that lead because, you know, we don't know. We didn't have the evidence to say, no, she was back. But they were suspicious of her pretty much from, like, day 2 of the investigation. Like, from the day after she said that she was carjacked. Like, they knew something was not right. Like, just the way she was acting, and they gave her lie detector tests and all that other kind of stuff. So, you know what I mean. James Homie Holmes says, first time hearing about these women. Oh, shit.
What?
You must be very young.
Yeah.
Or not from the U.S. I mean, these were hugely... This was a while back. I mean, the Susan Smith case was 1994, and the Andrea Yates case was 2001.
Yeah.
So, but at the time, this was everywhere. This was all over the
Yeah, I
fucking
think
media.
Smith just wanted a new husband. Wasn't that what it was? She wanted a new family.
Well, kinda.
She had a
Like,
boyfriend.
yeah,
We'll get into it.
We'll get into that in a little while. And like I said, I found it fascinating too because these women, their personalities are kind of similar. I mean, there's a lot of differences too, which I'll get into in a bit. But just from a psychological standpoint, they had a lot of very similar attributes, which I found was very interesting. But yeah, James says some women shouldn't be parents. Holy shit. Some people goes for both sexes. Yeah, I mean, some people should absolutely not have children. Yeah, James said was born in 97. I'm familiar with a lot of true crime, but not this in particular. Oh, okay. So you are younger. Thank you very much, Jeffy Art. Today we had families on campus, and some of them had very loud and fussy children. I thought about your show during the ordeal. I guess felt bad. I mean, yeah, that's a, well, I mean, you know, we've all been there. But yeah. All right, so let's talk about Susan Smith first. Now, as I said, back in 1984, this happened in a dinky little town called Union, South Carolina. And so basically, most people kind of know the outline of the story. What ended up happening was that Susan Smith, she was separated from her husband, David, at this juncture. They were still kind of on again, off again. But they had two sons, Michael, who was 3, and Alexander, who was 14 months old. Now, she claimed, and we'll get into what really happened later on, but she claimed at first that, as I mentioned, a black man had approached her car and got into the car at gunpoint and told her to drive, and then like told her to get out of the car or whatever. Like told her to get out of the car and then took off, and she didn't know like where they went to. And she even like ran to a neighbor's house and like called the cops, and she was freaking out and everything like that. So after that, like everybody obviously thought, oh my god, her kids have been kidnapped, and it was just like a whole big national thing where she was all over the news. She was like crying and begging for the kids to come back, and so was David. Like I said, they were separated, but they were still co-parenting the kids, like, and they seemed to still, like I said, they were still fucking like every now and then. She was fucking a bunch of other people too. Well, so was he. But that the relationship, the family dynamics in both of these cases are astounding. Let me just say that.
So it was an on again, off again relationship. It was a
I mean, they were married.
They were married,
but I mean, they married very young. I believe she was only 19, and she was already pregnant when they got married, and basically they were just very volatile. They both seemed very, very immature.
Yeah.
They were constantly cheating on one another, like breaking up and getting back together, that kind of shit.
Yeah, look, 19. That's young by today's standard. That was not young by the South standards of that time. I knew a lot of people that were married by then.
But still, I mean, she just seemed like a very immature person.
Yeah, and they were like that. The ones that I knew that got married at that age in the South were like that too. They were wild. Just because they were married didn't mean that they were like normal. You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, Susan Smith, big time.
A lot of them were wild.
She was, well, the thing about her too, and this was kind of similar to what Andrea Yates was like, not quite. Susan Smith seemed like one of those women or girls when they're younger who they don't feel they're very emotionally needy. They don't feel like they got enough love or affection from their families, and so these particular types of girls will seek it out just by like fucking a bunch of men because they think that that's love, and they're trying to get love from all of these dudes. So they just become very promiscuous. And Susan Smith seems to fit that to a T. At the time that she killed her children, I believe she was having sex with 4 different men, one of them her stepfather. Damn. But we'll get into that in a little bit too. Damn. I mean, he actually, to be fair, he actually started molesting her when she was a teenager. And their relationship continued until she was in her 20s, at which point she said, oh, it was consensual. But I'm like, I don't know, man. There's something really fucking weird about that.
Oh, yeah.
That's fucking weird. So, yeah, we'll get into that. Like I said, the fucking family dynamics in both these cases are horrific. They're just, like, horrifying.
Like you said, though, there are some people that are just like that.
Yeah.
Just something about the environment they come from. Might be genetics, too. I don't know.
It could be.
It could be early family, or they're in a weird place. There's a lot of poverty and stuff, you know.
Yeah,
Weird.
and this seems like I said, this is a very small town.
Yeah.
Oracle points out premarital sex is also cheap entertainment, especially
Yeah.
in a small town. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
And-
probably why. That's why you
Right.
see like
This
so
is
much.
Pre-internet.
Yeah, this was
Not a whole lot to
1994.
do. I mean, shit, Mississippi was wild, man. Rural Mississippi, you would think that, you know, like, okay, outsiders, New York and California had this weird view that the South was puritanical. No, the South was fucking wild. Yeah, there was religion and shit, but that didn't stop them from fucking doing crazy shit, man. The dude that had the most girlfriends in the town would have been the preacher. You know, it's just, you know, he'd probably been the most perverse one. But no, it's just Mississippi was pretty wild like that. Although it wasn't always negative like this, though. You know what I mean? There was a lot of positive aspects to it. But in this particular case, this is some freaky shit.
Yeah, like I said, I don't generally have a problem with promiscuity as long as
Yeah.
everybody's consenting and safe. You know, and as long as you're not like fucking young and it's like a fucking, you know what I mean, like the age differential. But it's like, you know what I mean? I don't really have a problem with that. But this just seemed, she seemed to be doing it to like, I don't know, like fill a need in her life that wasn't being met from her family. Like it was that, because I knew some people like that growing up. They're just kind of like, oh, daddy didn't love, well, I was going to say daddy didn't love me, but it's kind of fucked up what happened to her family. Her daddy loved her, but he blew himself away when she was 6.
Well,
so he committed suicide.
yeah. Well, you know, the male-female relationship, you know, at its core is kind of transactional. And if you're lower income and you're a pretty girl and you're young, that's probably the only thing you got going for you. And at an early age, you can find out that you can move up in life if you have a bunch of boyfriends.
Now,
You get free
the
stuff.
interesting thing about Susan Smith, though, is that for the small town,
Yeah.
she was actually kind of more on the, her family wasn't wealthy, but she was like more on the
upper end.
upper end.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, that was kind of one of the objections that her family had to her marrying David, because they thought he was like beneath her because he was from like the wrong side of the tracks
you
or
know,
whatever.
that mating style is in all classes. They got rich hoes too. Girls that grew up with silver spoons in their mouths, fucking horse riding lessons and everything, and go to universities. She's got an MRS degree and she just fucks rich dudes. You know. That's how she moves up. It's the same thing. It happens in every class. So just because she was on the upper end of the lower class doesn't you know, stop that effect, you know. They're out there.
Oracle says, hey, we had internet back then, well, in Charleston, and it was dial-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did have I can't remember when we first got dial-up. Might have been 94 or 95.
Around this time, I remember internet was starting to appear. I was the Gulf Coast of Mississippi after the Army with my first wife, and I was amazed that you could order clothes off of the internet and get them delivered to your house using an ATM card, like something out of an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It was like something out of fucking Running Man. I was amazed. You didn't need them all.
Yep.
And I was like, those malls are going to vanish. What do you need a mall for? I called it.
High Desert 004 said, all these small towns are full of meth.
Yeah.
They are, actually.
I don't think meth
I don't know about 94. That
94.
might have been pre the meth, but nowadays for sure.
Yeah. Population control.
Slasher Fred said there was a movie called Freedom Land, which is centered around the Susan Smith murder case. I don't think I've ever seen that, actually. I watched like a bunch of documentaries about her. There was a really good one from a few years back that had like Bill Curtis on it. He's always good. I like his voice or whatever. But yeah, but I didn't watch the movie.
I've never done meth. It must be a hell of a drug. They'll do it until their teeth fall out.
Yeah,
don't
I
know
just
what it
really
does.
have no desire.
Yeah, I don't like any amphetamines like that.
I don't either.
If they were to keep me up for days
I don't
and days,
I don't need
like,
that
what
shit.
What the fuck do you want that for? Yeah.
That's what I mean. The only drugs I'm an advocate for, like personally, is like hallucinogens. Like those are fun. But other than that, no thanks. I don't want anything that like speeds me out. I don't want anything that makes me fucking paranoid or spazzy or anything like that. No, thank you. I don't need that.
Smoked opium in Egypt. That was great. But you
See, I
just
don't.
sit down.
I mean, I don't.
out.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be averse to
Yeah.
that. I need shit that like chills me out.
Yeah,
You know what I
just,
mean?
yeah.
Like chills me out or makes me more creative or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't really need something that's gonna like make me all
Yeah.
woo. I don't need anything like that.
Yeah, and you
That's
sleep
no
it off,
thanks.
and you wake up the next morning, you sleep it off, and it doesn't even call you back. It's not addictive. I mean, you'd probably have to smoke a lot of it to get addicted to it. But, you know, it'd be like cigarettes or alcohol. That could happen with alcohol, you know.
James said, "No hard drugs, only cannabis and psychedelics for me, thank you." Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. I'm not a big weed
I don't like
person.
weed,
I don't like weed because it makes me even more paranoid than usual. But psychedelics, yeah, I'm down with that. But other than
Weed
that,
makes you feel vulnerable. I feel like I wouldn't be able to fight if somebody attacked me.
I don't feel like that, but it does make me feel like even more self-conscious and paranoid, like
Yeah.
everyone's looking at me.
I'd be able to fight on acid.
Yeah, you probably.
Oh,
would.
yeah.
It's like, oh, he's
I can
all
drive
he's
well.
all wavy.
I can even drive well on it.
I'm hitting over here. I'm hitting.
As long as
over
the
there.
dose isn't too high. But
High Desert said, "I remember after the Andrea Yates case, people were going to that lake and take. I guess you mean the Susan Smith one, because Andrea Yates drowned her kids in a bathtub. Susan Smith was the one with the lake. People were going to that lake and taking photos of themselves there. It was weird. Yeah, and you know what's fucked up about that is that later on, like there was a van of people that had gone to that boat ramp. They tore the boat ramp out now; it's not there anymore. But they went to that boat ramp to take pictures because, like, ooh, this is a place where it happened. And that car slid off into the thing, and like a bunch of people drowned, like including a bunch of kids. So,
James brings up a good angle. Poverty also plays hell on your genes.
It does, yeah.
Because
Well,
there's a brain drain effect. Anybody who's got higher IQ gets the fuck out of there, leaving behind a gene pool of just people who are dumb.
well, and the thing about it too is that poverty, if you are raised in poverty, there are a lot of environmental factors that will affect your
Yeah.
whole entire life later on. You know, if you have like bad nutrition when you're younger,
Yeah.
like
Bad
everything,
stimuli.
like bad, yeah, like, you know, you don't get the health care that you need because there's no money and
A lot of it's
stuff.
mental stimulation. They don't
So-
get proper mental stimulation.
That too. So it's like it affects your
Yeah.
whole entire
Right.
life. Like I think people forget
They're
that.
raised by fucking family members that have like fucking an 80 word vocabulary, if that. So, you know, their speech skills are terrible.
Yeah, it's just sad all
Yeah.
around because they didn't ask to be born into that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's not their fault, but it's just fucked up that happens. But that happens too. So, okay. So Susan Smith, I found out this is very interesting. Well, it was interesting to me because Susan Smith was born exactly 1 year before I was. She was born on my birthday, September 26, 1971. I was actually born September 26, 1972. So she was actually born in Union, South Carolina, lived there her whole entire life. You know, like I said, very, very small town.
I'm only a year older than her, basically.
Yeah. And she had 2 older brothers. Now, when she was 6 years old, her dad, who she was very close to and looked up to and stuff like that, committed suicide. He actually took a shotgun and put it in his midsection and shot, and he didn't die right away, but it killed him later on. Prior to that, I think he had been like an okay dude, but then he kind of fell into alcoholism, depression, things of that nature, and kind of became violent toward her mother, things of that sort. Susan actually tried to commit suicide herself when she was 13 years old. And it wouldn't be the first time either. So it was just like kind of a messed up situation all around, like the family dynamic. So then her mom, whose name is Linda, married her stepdad, whose name is Beverly Russell. Now this guy, he was divorced, but he had 3 kids from the previous marriage. And he was actually fairly wealthy. He was a stockbroker. He was kind of a high up muckety muck in like the South Carolina Republican Party, also a big high muckety muck in the Christian Coalition. So they moved to like a much nicer house, like in this real exclusive part of the town and blah de blah. However, when Susan was 15 years old, her stepfather started molesting her. Like he started groping her and things like that. Now, Susan actually did inform the guidance counselor at her school about this when she was 16 years old. Said, hey, my stepdad is molesting me. And told her mom as well. Now, her mom actually, to her credit, she actually did go to the dude and be like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like, she actually did confront him about it. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, and I promise I'll never do it again. I'll go to family therapy or whatever you want or anything like that. Which they did that, but he kept doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? He sounds great. Okay, I will say that later on, after Susan killed her kids and there was trial and everything, he did actually get on the stand at the trial and take partial responsibility for the murder because of what he had done to her. Like, he did admit it, and he did. So I was like, at least he did that. He shouldn't have done it to start with, but at least he was man enough to come out and go, yeah, I did this shit, and I feel partially responsible for what she did because I fucked her up.
Yeah, credit to the guy, but I don't think he had anything to do with it.
Well, I don't know.
A lot of girls have been through some shit like that. They don't kill their kids.
That's what I'm saying. It's just kind of like, and I'm always kind of like, I don't know. And I think we talked about this before when we were talking about the Long Island serial killer, or when we were talking about other serial killer cases. We always kind of go into their background because I think it's interesting and because I think it does give some insight into maybe why they did shit they did later on. But it's like, it's never going to be the complete answer because obviously, like, some people have had just like horrific fucking childhoods and then they grew up and they were fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they got their shit together. They didn't kill anybody.
I don't want to speak too soon and jump to the conclusion, but it was always been my opinion based on this case. I mean, Jenny's refreshing my mind right now, but I remembered how I felt about this woman back then. And I just thought she was just real self-centered and real selfish. More than anything else.
Yeah, I got that impression too. Like, she was kind of like a narcissist.
Yeah.
She was very attention-seeking.
Yeah.
She did have some problems. She had some mental problems, but yeah, she did really seem. I think she knew what she was doing, and even after she did it, I just got the feeling that she didn't really care all that much.
Nah,
Maybe that's.
I recall thinking that she was basically just trying to move up in life, and she was monkey branching from one guy to the next, and she was crowdsourcing men's help to get ahead, and she was trying to get rid of the old husband, get a new one and a new family. The kids were just an obstacle to her having more fun, really, and getting more wealth. I just thought, and more notoriety and attention and shit.
Yeah, because I will note that I believe it was like 5 or 6 days before the murder. Some of her coworkers did say that she'd said something like, "I wonder what my life would have been like if I hadn't married and had kids so young."
Yeah. Now, granted, the stepdad was messing with her.
Which he shouldn't have been doing that.
Should have been doing that, but probably that didn't make her kill the kids.
No.
But maybe what that did is just reinforce in her mind at an early age that she could get what she wanted from guys. I think that's...
maybe so.
She could apply her feminine ways and get men to fucking help her and fucking help move her along in life. And she was going to do that to as many men as she could get her hands on. And if the kids were in the way, it obviously, proof's in the pudding, she'd eliminate her own children to get what she wanted. So that's evil. I don't care how you... That's evil. That's what that is.
Yeah. I agree with you there.
That's evil.
I agree with you there. Like I said, when we talk about Andrea Yates, I actually do feel bad for her. Yeah. But Susan Smith, not so much. Not so much. Like I said, that shit shouldn't have happened to her when she was a kid. That sucks that her dad killed himself, and there was all kind of other... And she got molested and all that other kind of stuff. But it's like, it doesn't... I think she did what she did, like you said, for selfish reasons.
Yeah. She probably... fucking rationalize this shit. Well, it's like abortion. It's just happening later. It's like that.
Maybe that's
it's
what
very
she
late
thought.
term abortion.
Maybe that's what she thought. Maybe that's how she thought of it.
They're not real people. They're just little kids.
Right.
Fuck. That bitch is crazy.
Jeff here said, I think Susan Smith just felt bad that she got caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think so too.
Yeah.
I kind of think so too.
She's a psycho.
So yeah. So later on, while she was still in high school, like I said, after she, told them about the molestation and everything like that, she made a second suicide attempt. Like I said, her first one was when she was 13. Now, around this time period, the thing about Susan Smith, and the same is true of Andrea Yates, both of them I don't know if I'd call Susan Smith an overachiever, but she was a really, really good student. Like, she was in a bunch of clubs, and it's like she was voted friendliest female, like in the friendliest female. That sounds so fucking clinical. In the yearbook and all this other kind of stuff. So both of these women, when they were teenagers, were very, very high achieving, which I thought was interesting. I'll get into a little bit more with Andrea Yates because I think it was more pronounced in her case. But the same was true, like I said, Susan Smith was like a really good student and all this other kind of stuff, even though all of this stuff was going on at home. And she was like super normal. Like, I don't think anybody would have imagined that she would have done something this fucking horrible, but you know. So she actually, when she was a little bit older, like 18, 19, she had a part-time job at the good old Winn-Dixie supermarket, which I don't think they have those all over the country. That's like a southern thing.
Yeah, they're nice. Nice now.
They're nice now. They used to be shitholes, but
yeah, used to be shitholes. They had to up their game.
Because Publix was kicking their ass. Yeah. So, but I remember when I was a kid, like Publix was the nice fancy place that we couldn't afford to go, so we had to go to like Winn-Dixie or Goodings.
Piggly Wiggly.
Or Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah.
And those were like not as nice.
They were fucking budget. Yeah.
Yeah, they were not as nice.
Yeah. Go to Winn-Dixie now, and they got a good deli and salad bar. And
yeah, now they're all fancy. Well, like I said, they had to compete.
Yeah.
Like, they couldn't be like shitholes.
Crab legs.
Yeah, that's why we always go when they have sales on crab legs. So she worked at the Winn-Dixie. And while she was at the Winn-Dixie, she was also having an affair with an older married co-worker at the Winn-Dixie.
Like I told you.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, she was just like running through the dudes. And he broke up with her, and she, this is when she made her suicide attempt. She tried to overdose. So she actually got sent to a psychiatrist.
What, did he make some kind of promise to her or something?
What do you mean?
She tried to kill herself because he broke up with her?
Because he broke up with her, yeah.
What did he promise to marry her or something?
The thing about Susan Smith that you see this again and again, including the relationship that ostensibly led to the killing of her children, she just seemed very needy. I think that she just wanted these dudes to like love her forever, and just I think she had like a really immature idea of how relationships were supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She just really, every time she was in a relationship with a dude, just like, this is the one. You know what I mean?
But she had more than one at a time.
I know, but then, I think she was like looking for that. And like, then when it didn't work out, she had like this big, like I said, which is a very teenage thing to do.
She was crowdsourcing.
Yeah.
Crowdsourcing her men.
Just
in case one fell through, she'd have backups.
Yeah. And like I said, she really did seem to, and maybe it was because her dad committed suicide when she was little.
Maybe. Afraid she's gonna lose the man.
She was, yeah. I think she was just constantly like looking for like a father figure or just a male figure in her life, and if you know what I mean, she needed more than one, like you said, because she didn't want to. If she lost one, then there would be another one there, waiting in the wings. She didn't really seem to have trouble getting men, and actually, some of the dudes like spoke quite favorably of her, but she was clearly very immature. I mean, she's very young at this stage. She's probably only 18 or 19 at this point. But yeah, so she had attempted suicide again after this older guy who she was having an affair with. He was married. How
old was he, you know?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. I'd say he was 20s, 30s, something like that. I mean, she was, like I said, she was young. She was only 18 or 19 at this stage.
It's not like he was in his 50s or 60s.
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think he was that old. He was just, like, older than her.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. Also, she's basically, like... So when she goes to a psychiatrist, she tells... Because remember how I said, like, the stepdad had started molesting her when she was 15. And then, but she told the psychiatrist, now she was 19 or 20 or however old she was, that now she was still having sex with him, but now it was consensual. She told the psychiatrist is that she didn't want her mom getting all the men's attention. And so she was asleep. I don't know what the dynamic between her and her stepfather was, because that's just all kind of fucked up. So I don't know if that's just what she told herself, or if she really believed that, or... I don't really know. Like I said, it's not right. Like, she wasn't right completely. Like, she had some weird ideas about shit.
She's probably telling the truth.
But maybe so. Yeah, maybe
They're
so.
not blood relatives, and he's fitting the bill for what she's looking for. A father type figure, an older guy to take care of her. How old was he? 30s?
Who, her stepfather?
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have been mid to late 30s at that time, or maybe 40s. I can't remember.
Yeah, and also it's kind of like maybe rivalry against her mom.
Well, yeah, she basically said as much.
Yeah, she's proven to herself that she's worth more than her mom, more power than her mom.
It's like I said, it's messed up. Like the whole dynamic is messed up.
You have some weird dynamics there. Narcissism.
Yeah, I definitely got that impression.
Yeah.
James says she wanted a relationship she could control, and the dudes just wanted a pump and dump. Just my unprofessional input.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's probably it. So yeah. Now, so she works at the Winn-Dixie, and then there's also another dude who works at the Winn-Dixie whose name is David. And the two of them hooked up and started dating. Now, David, he also came from kind of a weird background. There was also a lot of suicide in his family. His brother had died in an accident, or no, he died of Crohn's disease, I think. So, and he was like real young. And he'd also been, like, his family was Jehovah's Witnesses. So he was like, came from like a real strict religious background. So there was that kind of thing. So Susan and David, they dated for about a year. And then they got married. At this stage, I believe Susan was only 19 years old. And she was already 2 months pregnant with Michael, who would be 3 when he died. David at this stage was 20. And like I said, he had also had some tragedy in his family. I believe his father also attempted suicide, at least. So there was a lot of that going around, like, in these two families, which is bizarre. So the two of them, so they get married, and almost instantly, they're just like constantly, like I said, the relationship was very volatile. They both seemed, young, kind of immature, and they're constantly arguing, and they're just constantly cheating on each other. It wasn't just her, like, he did it too. He was fucking around on her, she was fucking around on him. They kept, like, breaking up and getting back together, and it was just this big fucking shit show. You know what I mean? So, in 1993, Susan started having an affair with a dude named Tom Findlay. Now, he was actually the son of the guy who owned the company that she worked for, Conso Products, which was like one of the big employers, like, in this real small town. She was a secretary there. And so she was, in her early 20s, I guess. She was 21, 22 around this time. He was 27. And they dated for a little while. Now, Tom Findlay was kind of considered this very small town's one of the big eligible bachelors, right? Because he was single. He came from a very, very wealthy family, one of the wealthiest families in town. Wasn't much to look at, gotta say, at least from the brief video footage I saw of him. But, he had money and he was single, and he seemed like an okay dude, you know what I mean, just from everything that I heard about him. So, she was thinking maybe that, well, this is like her ticket out of here, right? Because he's really rich. And they did have a relationship for a while. Probably, I think it lasted like less than a year, though. I think it was like 9 or 10 months or something like that. So in October of 1994, Tom Findlay sends her a letter that kind of looked like a fucking... I've read the whole thing. It kind of looked like a form letter, which is kind of fucked up. But apparently she was super, super in love with him. And he really liked her too. Like, a lot of the letter, he was kind of... You could tell that he was trying to, like, let her down easy. Like, he's like, I think you're awesome. And you're, like, an awesome person. And it's like, she had gone back to school and was working. And he's like, yeah, I'm still doing that. And I'm so proud of you. And all this other kind of stuff. But basically, he said, you kind of want this to be, like, the big relationship, like, oh, it's you and me together forever. And he's like, and that's, maybe you'll find that, but it's not going to be with me. And he basically straight up told her, basically the one thing that he didn't like about her was her kids. He said that like pretty, but he didn't word it exactly like that, but almost. Like the way he said it was, the one thing I'm talking about that, doesn't suit me is your children. He's like, I'm sure that they're good children, but they could be the best children in the world. The fact remains that I just don't want children. So that's basically what he said. So he's like, so we can't see each other anymore. He's like, he just didn't want a ready-made family is basically what he said to her. So like I said, a little harsh, but...
Dude shouldn't have said anything.
I don't know if that necessarily would have worked either, but... Because then she would have just kept, like, carrying on. But so he sends her this letter.
Easier I don't like you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he shouldn't have even said that.
Yeah, I don't really like you anymore. I gotta go. That kind of shit.
Yeah. James said, bro, ain't no way that seriously could have pushed her to do what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he hadn't said that. Like you said, maybe if he had just sent her, like, a mean letter and said, hey, I don't like you anymore, piss off.
Yeah. Women react to that a lot better.
Maybe.
Fuck you, then.
That's what I mean. Maybe she would have just been, oh, well, go fuck yourself, and then just gone and find another. Well, she was still married at the time, but well, I mean, she was separated from David at this point because, like I said, they were constantly separating and getting back together. So the fact that he said that, like I said, I read the letter that he sent, and the fact that he kind of tried to sugarcoat it because he was trying to be nice to her and like let her down easy, because I guess he did like her, but. The fact that he just said it real baldly like that, I'm not blaming and I'm not saying that, but I don't know. Would she have done it anyway if he hadn't said that? I don't really know. You know what I mean? I don't know. But regardless, he did say that in the letter. So on, when she got the letter, basically she, later on the same day, she got into a fight with David, because David had like gone through her shit. Like he knew that she was always like fucking around and he was always trying to, because even though he was fucking around too, he always seemed like really jealous about it. Like what are you seeing that dude for? And what are you doing? And I'm like, dude, you're fucking around too. So what the hell? But yeah, David was no prize either, gonna say. I mean, but he seems like okay now. Like he's got his life together and whatever, but I don't know. He didn't seem like that great of a person either. But, I mean, he's not really to blame in this situation, gonna say. But, he went through her shit, and I guess he found the letter from Tom Finley. And they had a big fight about it. And I think, too... Now, I don't know if this is true or not, or I don't know if Susan just said this to Tom Finley, like, to make Tom Finley feel bad, for some reason. But she also told Tom that she was fucking... his dad, who was the owner of the business that she worked for, you know what I mean?
Was it true?
I don't know. Okay. That's what I mean. I don't know if she just said that like to get back at him.
Yeah.
Or if she was actually fucking the old dude.
Damn.
I don't know. I don't know if she was. I mean, it's perfectly possible.
Yeah.
Because she was fucking her stepfather.
Yeah.
And her husband. And this Tom Finley dude.
It gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's what I mean.
This is hoflation. The hoe is inflating. Hoflation. Yeah,
that's pretty much.
She becomes a bigger and bigger hoe. The more you find out, it's just fucking hilarious.
I mean, it's fucking crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's fucking crazy. So I don't know if she was also fucking Tom Finley's dad, who was the owner of the company that she worked for. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But it also wouldn't surprise me if she just told him that, like, to piss him off or something.
Equally plausible.
That is equally plausible. So I don't actually know if the two of them were fucking or not, but she did say that. Now, I don't know if her husband heard that rumor and got mad about that too, but, like, so she got this letter, and then on top of it, like, her and David had this big, huge fight. And then, like, after she went back to Tom Finley and was, like, said, hey, I'm fucking your dad, and then he was just like, get the fuck out of my face, you know what I mean? And then, so, a few hours after that, so... After that whole argument, what ended up happening, she ends up, like, she goes and picks up her kids from daycare like she normally would, straps them in the back of the car like she normally would. And then she is so upset by this letter that she's got and this fight that she's had with David that she just kind of like drives aimlessly around. Like she goes to this one bar, well, the bar. There was only one bar in this town. That's how small this town is. They have one bar. And what the fuck was it called? Something nuts. Hickory Nuts. That's what's the name of it. But yeah, so it's like this tavern and restaurant or whatever. So she goes there and like she sits in the parking lot and she's like talking to a friend of hers, and this friend of hers was also a co-worker, and she kept asking about, is Tom, did you guys go to dinner with Tom Finley? Did he ask about me? And they're like, no, he didn't say anything about you. And then like she got like really upset about that. Then she went back to her workplace and like tried to talk to Tom again, and he's like, look, you can't be here. I feel bad how shit worked out, but you can't just like keep coming back here. It's like, it looks bad. So she was like really trying to like fucking get back in with this dude, and it was like really upsetting her, right? So after a couple of hours of driving around in the car with the kids in the back, she evidently went to the boat ramp on John D. Long Lake and let the car roll into the lake with her kids in the back. Now, later on, she would say that initially she had planned to commit suicide, which is not crazy because she actually had attempted it a few times before. So she was basically saying, well, I was going to, go into the lake with the kids, but then like at the last minute, she was like, she got out the car, but then she reached back into the car and took off the emergency brake and let the car roll into the lake.
How old were the kids? The kids were like under 2 or 3.
Three. One of them was 3 and one of them was 14 months. And they were both in car seats.
So the 3-year-old would have kind of known what the hell was going on.
Which, yeah, it's fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrifying. So, yeah. So she puts him in her car, which is, like I said, a Mazda Protege, and lets it roll into the lake. And then she runs to a nearby house and asks them to call the police because a black man has carjacked her and has abducted her children. Now, obviously, everybody at first kind of believed this story. Her husband believed it. Everybody believed it. And everybody felt really, really bad for her, as you would. So she goes on TV. Her and David are on TV. Her whole family are on there, like begging this phantom carjacker to please bring the children back without harming them. She's on there, like, pretending to cry. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's very clear, and I don't know if it's just because I know that she really killed them, but, like, seeing the footage from before anybody else knew that, it's very clear that she's fake crying. Like, just the way that she's talking, like, she's really overselling it, I'm gonna say. Like, yeah, you'd be upset in that situation if that legitimately did happen. You'd be really upset about it, but just the way she was going on about it just seemed really fakey. And the cops thought so as well. Pretty much the second day of the investigation, and one of the cops, like, I was watching an interview with him, and he said, look, you have to kind of explore every single lead. So we were looking for this guy, and there actually was a time when, like, they did find a car that looked kind of like her car. It was a Mazda Protege that had, like, a little kid in the back that was kind of fit the description. So they were, like, investigating that, but it turned out not to be him, obviously, because that kid was already dead. So they did explore that avenue. However, the cops, pretty much from the day after the murder, or the disappearance at that point, some of the cops were pretty fucking suspicious of Susan Smith for several reasons. One of the reasons was that, one, her reactions to things seemed very fakey. She always seemed like when they were taking her places, because she was like all over the media and everything like that, when they were taking her places, she seemed more concerned about whether Tom was going to come see her or call her than she was about finding her kids. Like, they thought that was a little weird. And sometimes she would ask something like, was I on TV? Did I look good on TV? Or something like that. She would ask questions like that. Also, they gave her a series of lie detector tests. They gave David one too, because, usually, a lot of times, like when children die, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's quite a high percentage. It's usually the parents. The parents are involved. So they were the first ones they kind of looked at. So they gave David a lie detector test, and it was very clear he passed it with flying colors. It was very clear he knew nothing about where the children were or what had happened. He did believe Susan Smith, though. He said he believed her wholeheartedly, had no reason not to. However, when they gave Susan Smith the lie detector test several times, the results were always inconclusive, and they said that she always, in particular, tripped up on one specific question, which was, do you know where the children are? Like, she would always say no, and it always indicated deception at that point. I believe she took 9 lie detector tests over the course of the days. She took one, like, every day or something like that, and she always tripped up on that one particular question. So that was a little bit fishy. Another thing, too, is that the story that she initially told to the cops, that she was upset about getting this letter from her boyfriend that, like, essentially breaking up with her. And so she's like, so I was like, well, I'm going to drive over here. And she's like, I was going to drive to this friend's house. And then they found out that friend wasn't even home and wasn't even expecting her to come over. So what the hell was that all about? And then she said, oh, and I went to Walmart and did some shopping. Nobody that worked at Walmart that night remembered her and the kids being in there. Also, one of the things that really, like, raised some alarm bells was that she said when this Phantom Black man had carjacked her, she said she was stopped at a stoplight at this particular intersection, and that there were no other cars around, hence no witnesses. And the cop was like, at that particular intersection, the light that she would have been stopped at, she's like, that light is always green unless cars are coming the other way, like to trigger the sensor pad. So there's no way, if there were no other cars around, that she would have been stopped at a red light, because it would have been green if there were no other cars. Right. So they thought that was a little bit weird. Also, the forensic artist, again, like, said that the description that she gave of this dude was very, very vague. So they did, like, investigate that thing, but they were, like, investigating Susan as well. And one cop in particular, like, the kind of lead investigator on the thing, he was so convinced that Susan knew what was going on. He's like, at first, I didn't think she'd killed them. He's like, what we thought was going on was that she was afraid that, like, if her and David got divorced, that he would get custody, so she hid them somewhere. He's like, that's kind of what we were thinking. We didn't think that she'd killed them initially. But then, like, as time went on, they were like, oh, yeah, maybe she did do something. But that was the first thing that they were thinking, that was, like, a custody battle. Yeah, that it was, like, a custody battle, and that she had, like, hid him from him and said, oh, they got kidnapped. Because that has happened before.
That's the more common route thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's very rare that a woman kills her own kids.
It is very rare. It is very rare. But I listened to something the other day that said 1,000 kids in the U.S. every year killed by their parents. Not necessarily their moms. It could be their dads too.
Yeah. But, well, it's not a situation
but that's
like
not,
this, though.
No.
It's usually like dudes, they're on all kinds of drugs. They're not feeding the kid. The little kid's real small, too small to protect itself. Enraged dad, just out of his mind on some kind of damn meth, kills the kid by shaking it to death. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
It's usually not as cold-blooded. It's usually just they go psycho.
Yeah.
Something, fighting. They're fighting each other, and they turn on the kid. Drugs involved, low IQs involved. That too.
Yeah. So yeah. So for 9 days, this woman was on national TV, on all the news programs, all the morning programs, all that kind of stuff, pleading for the safe return of her 2 children when she knew goddamn well that they were dead. Now, another thing they thought was weird is that when they started sort of like low-key insinuating that she had something to do with it, they're like, her whole demeanor changed. Like, she got like super belligerent. I can't believe that you think that I'd do something like that. Like, she would get like that, which she wasn't like before. They said she was usually like pretty calm and pretty passive and stuff, but she would just absolutely get super defensive, like whenever somebody suggested something like that. So they thought that was a little fishy as well. One of the cops decided he was going to do like some kind of psychology on her, and he actually told her, and this, you can do this, he actually told her a little bit of a fib. He said that he had some undercover drug officers or whatever, like what do you call them, undercover officers.
Narcs, I don't know.
Narcs, yeah. Like, working at that particular intersection, like, where she said the carjacking occurred. And he said, and they didn't see anything. Like, that was not true.
Right.
But at this point, he was pretty sure that her story, because all these little inconsistent details, like, every time she said something, like, it didn't really add up. So he knew that she knew more than she was letting on. So he's like, so I decided that I was going to tell her all of this kind of little fib and stuff just to see if I could get her to confess and, like, wear her down after a while.
Because she had to pull out more lies.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So he was kind of, like, trying to work on her because they said that, you know, for 9 days, she absolutely insisted that she didn't have anything to do with this. I can't believe you would even insinuate such a thing. Blah, blah, blah. And she kind of, like, had everybody fooled. But finally, after 9 days... one of the cops, like, took her in this room, like, in this church or whatever, and finally, he was able to persuade her gently into confessing. And she basically said, the first thing she said she started to cry, and then she said, the kids are not all right. That was the first thing she said. And then they got everybody in there, and they got her to write down her confession. And it's crazy looking at her confession because I looked at the one, like, a photocopy of the one that she wrote, like, because she just wrote it by hand. And she has very teenagery handwriting. Like, even at every time she wants to use the word heart, she just draws a little heart. It's just very, it looks like a teenager's handwriting, like, in their journal. So basically, she said her story was that she, after she got the letter from the boyfriend, she was suicidal. And then she started thinking, well, I don't want my kids to grow up without a mom, so we're all going to go out together. That was what she thought. So she drove around for a couple of hours thinking about this, and then she drives to the boat ramp where she said I don't think she'd ever been there before. And she said that she was still in the car and released the brake and let it roll forward, but then stopped it, then let it roll forward and then stopped it, like she was going to go in there too. But then in the end, she got out, left the babies in there, and then reached in the window and took the emergency brake off and just stood there and kind of watched while the car went into the thing. And this is fucked up. I didn't see the whole thing because I don't want that rattling around in my head. But at the trial, they actually did a reenactment with the same kind of car and at the same place. So they wanted to demonstrate how long it would have taken for the car to sink.
A long time.
5 minutes and 52 seconds.
They float.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it, because even from the beginning of the investigation, when they were still going with the carjacking story, like before she confessed, they still had, the cops still had enough wherewithal to have divers search that lake. Problem was, they were thinking that somebody had driven into the lake, like, at high speed. So they were thinking that the car was going to be, like, right there, like, near the shore. So they only went out to, like, 120 feet. Turned out that the car, and here's the creepy thing, too, is that when Susan Smith, like, confessed, and they're like, okay, well, to know that this confession is legit, like, where is the car? Like, where are the children? She told them exactly where it was. Like, they sent the divers out there, and they found it. Yeah. It was like 18 feet down or some shit like that, like in the bottom of the lake. And the lake was like real murky. They hadn't seen it before because they hadn't gone out far enough. Because like I said, they were thinking that somebody at high speed had driven into the lake, and the car would have been right there. But the thing about it was she just let it roll into there, which meant the car floated for a while and then went face down. And it actually flipped over when they found the car. It was upside down. So the kids were hanging.
Yeah.
And they said you could see them through the window, like when they found the car, which must have been creepy as fuck.
How long had they been down there?
9 days.
Yeah, they were starting to rot.
Well,
fish were getting them probably.
Well, the car was all closed, but I mean it was full of water, obviously, but yeah.
I thought the window was open.
No, the windows were all closed.
Oh, okay. She didn't. I think you said she reached in through the window and hit the.
Well, that's what I heard, but then I heard that when they found the car, like, the windows were all closed.
She must have hit the emergency brake and slammed the door.
Maybe, yeah. I guess that's what it was.
And the window was closed.
Rather than reaching in the window. Because I think all the windows were closed. But so the creepy thing to me, when they did the reenactment,
it would have taken a long time for the water to go in there.
Well, because they were trying to show like, look, you had almost 6 minutes where you
Yeah.
could have stopped it, where you could have jumped
Yeah.
in there and saved them. You know
She
what I
had
mean?
no intention of saving them.
But right, well, that's what they were trying to
Yeah.
demonstrate, that it's like you had all this
She
time.
could have swum out there and got him.
Right, because the car like didn't sink for
Yeah.
a really long
Yeah.
time. And the fucked up thing is that they had a camera outside the car, like when they did the reenactment, and then they put a camera inside the car too, like where
Yeah.
the kids would have been sitting.
There's been an air bubble in there for a long
So
time.
yeah, so they're like, so the car sank, but it's like it took a lot longer, like for the car to fill up on the inside.
Yeah.
So those kids would have been in there just like fucking screaming their fucking heads off,
Yeah.
like not, you know what I mean?
Upside down.
Upside down because the
Yeah.
car flipped over.
in the car seat. Yeah.
Like
in the
I
dark
said, yeah.
with the water coming in.
Which like must have been fucking horrifying. I when I pictured that, when I thought of that, I was like, oh my god, that was like fucking horrible. It's horrible. But yeah, so
I'd have put that bitch in a car and fucking thrown her out there.
that's what I mean.
Oh well. I don't believe for 1 minute that she was gonna kill herself. No.
Yeah, apparently, like, well, the thing about it is that
It might have crossed her mind, but then she went, "No, I can just kill these kids," and went out there and did that. I'll just say somebody else did it.
I mean, the thing about it though is that what did she think was gonna happen exactly?
She's not intelligent.
I
She's
mean,
not an intelligent.
I mean,
person.
she must have known that she was gonna get caught at some point.
Yeah, she's just not an intelligent person.
Unless she really thought everybody was gonna buy that carjacker story
Yeah.
forever.
Well,
I mean-
this whole thing about, well, yeah, I'm gonna kill myself, and these kids, they can't be without a mom. Right there, that's that fucked up mentality. I don't really believe that she thought that, but if she did, which I think is unlikely, that's the same mentality. The guy loses his job, so he wipes out his whole family because he can't take care of them.
Yeah,
and then he moves on. And
right,
makes a new
and that's
family.
like something that
That's some weird
that I
shit.
saw somebody point out, that it's just
Yeah.
like, you know, family annihilators. We've done a
Yeah.
couple shows about a couple of those. They're usually men,
Yeah.
but I mean, this woman is it's kind of the same, a similar kind of
Yeah.
kind
She's
of
such a
dynamic
control
going on.
freak that he cannot accept the fact that he's failing. He doesn't want his family to realize that he's failing, that he can't pay the bills. And what's funny is that the family annihilators were so traditional that he couldn't go to the family and goes, "Look, I'm fired. Everybody's got to go get work now to help pay the mortgage." They couldn't do that. He'd rather kill you and then skirk away
Yeah,
under a new identity, killing his own kids to save them from
the shame.
From the shame. That's a control freak right there. That's a
Yeah.
real control freak.
well, and that's also very narcissistic.
Yeah, super narcissistic.
Because you're taking away like
Yeah.
your wife and your children's
Yeah.
choice.
And the one guy I'm thinking about, he had a fucking a son and a daughter, and the daughter was gorgeous, and she was like in her late teens,
yeah.
like ready to move out. You know, to move out of the house. He killed her. Fucking nut.
Well, yeah.
And an asshole too. And it's really this chick. She's an asshole.
Yeah. I mean, she really did come across
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
So she goes on.
She was. You know, she didn't get her way with these dudes. Hoflation took fucking full effect, and guys didn't want to mess with her. That's no reason to kill the kids. That's fucking nuts.
I mean, the thing about it is
a lot
that
of girls. This happens to a lot of girls. They
well,
don't kill kids.
and the thing about it is that if you really come to a place in your life where you feel like, well, I don't want these kids, or I can't deal with them, or something like that, it's like, you know, there are other options other
Yeah.
than killing them.
Yeah,
obviously,
family members.
yeah,
They
you
live
could
with
give them to
members.
family members.
There's
You
all
could
kinds
like
of-
put
yeah.
them up for adoption, which, you know, that's not
I
an
wouldn't do
ideal.
that.
That's not an ideal situation. But I'm just saying it's better than killing them.
Most
Christ's sake.
most of the time, and these are sometimes girls that you and I have known over time, have had kids. They had them too young, and they basically give them to their parents, and
Yeah.
their parents raise them. You know, grandma and grandpa.
Yeah,
raise them.
yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, until she's in her 20s or 30s, and she can kind of fucking handle her own business now, and then, you know, but she sees the kids all the time.
Right.
You know, we've known girls like that.
Yeah. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
James says family annihilators are scarier in my opinion than serial killers. Serial killers are random. Family annihilators can be your fucking parents or siblings.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you wouldn't know they were a family annihilator
until it was too late.
You're just walking into your room and shut the door behind you. Motherfucker was hiding behind a door with a fucking 22. Pops you right in the back of the head.
Yeah.
That's what that dude did with his daughter.
Yeah.
Popped her right in the back of the head with a 22.
Yeah, Tammy's talking about John List. Is that who you're talking about?
I think so. He's the
did
one
we do a show about John List?
He had them all up in the attic.
I thought we did.
And he ran and then started a whole new family. They didn't catch him until much, much later.
Yeah, Tammy said she could have let the dad have custody. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I mean. There's lots of other options.
That's why I don't believe it. I believe she intended to kill
I kind of don't know. Yeah. Like I said, she did attempt suicide before, so she obviously did have problems in that regard. But I don't know if she really intended to. I think she just intended to get them out of the way. Although, like I said, I don't think that she was really thinking that through, because what did she think was going to happen? Oh, my kids are gone. You know,
yeah.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
Let's get back together.
Yeah, my kids are gone.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Right. Problem solved.
And for all we know, that he used the kids as an excuse to dump her.
That's what I mean.
May have not have been the kids.
Although, like I said,
just didn't like her.
I do kind of feel like he probably should have just told her that. I mean, maybe he, like I said, he was trying to let her down gently and he was trying to be honest. But I don't know if I would have said, hey, the main thing I don't like about you is your kids. I don't want kids. You know what I mean? So I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying that I don't know if I would have said that like right like that. You know,
his thinking wasn't too straight.
No,
he thought she would take that okay. Oh yeah, well my kids, I would never trade my kids for this. That's probably what he thought she would do. He probably was dependent on her maternal instincts to kick in and go, "Fuck you, motherfucker."
Nope.
You know,
I mean that's what most people would do.
Yeah,
but she was obviously not most people. So yeah. So basically, everybody obviously, when they thought that her kids had been abducted, were super sympathetic and, putting pink ribbons and shit all over everything. Not pink ribbons, that's breast cancer. Yellow ribbons. But then, when she confessed, everybody... And actually, there's a great... when they did the press conference, where the investigator first came out and said that she's been charged with murder and blah, you could hear a huge audible gasp. From everybody, as we're oh, you heard everybody gasp, and I was just I had to listen to that a couple times just because I don't know why. I just thought that was really interesting that everybody was just fucking shocked. You know what I mean? So everybody obviously, public opinion turned on her pretty quickly. Everyone calling her baby killer and wanting to string her up and all this other kind of stuff. So since she had confessed, when she went to trial, they were pretty sure that. She was going to obviously be charged with murder and she was going to be found guilty of murder because she had confessed to it. So basically they were trying to, all it was coming down to was whether she was going to get life in prison or whether she was going to get the death penalty, because they did try to get the death penalty. The jury, however, they did find her guilty pretty quickly, but they did not think that the death penalty was warranted because they actually were swayed a little bit by all of the shit that had happened to her, in her life and stuff like that. So they're that's obviously it's fucked up what she did, but we don't think that she deserves the death penalty. So they did not give her that. Interestingly, normally in a town as small as this, because like I said, it's Union, South Carolina, so it's a very small town, and normally you would think that the defense attorney would try to get a change of venue because they would think that the defendant wouldn't be able to get a fair trial because everybody knew her. I mean, this is a kind of town where everybody knew everybody, you know what I mean? So it's how's she going to get a fair trial? But it actually ended up working in her favor because they said if we went to a larger town, like Columbia or something like that, where nobody really knew much about her except what they saw in the media, then it would be a lot easier to paint her as a monster, whereas the defense group was trying to drum up a little bit of sympathy for her just so she didn't get the death penalty. They knew that she was going to be guilty of murder, and she was. So, yeah. So she was guilty, got life in prison, although she is eligible for parole next year. I don't know if she's going to get it or not because she's been in there. She's been in there for 30 years, so she served 30 years.
They're not going to let her out.
So I doubt they'll let her out. I mean, if they do, I don't know. But so she's at a correctional center in Greenwood, South Carolina. And she's been kind of, like I said, a troublemaker in there. She's gotten she's had drugs smuggled in, marijuana and shit like that. She has also had sex with at least 2 correctional officers working at the prison, both of whom were suspended for that.
Suspended or fired?
Yeah, fired. I think one of them was suspended and one of them was fired.
Okay.
But for having a relationship with her. So there was that. And yeah, so she's always kind of getting into trouble. Now, she basically says she denies that she killed her children to be with a man, and she's very, very sad that everybody thinks that about her. You know, but I mean, she maintains that, you know, I wasn't in my right state of mind. I was really upset. I was suicidal, and it's just I was going to go with them, and then at the last minute I didn't, and she feels really bad about it and yada yada. But I don't know. I don't know if I buy it. And she's been corresponding with one dude who was her boyfriend, even though I don't think they ever met in real life. They were doing that, you know, prison letter exchange thing. And they were going to get married and all this other kind of stuff. But I think eventually, like, they didn't correspond anymore. So she's still looking for love. Still looking for male companionship. She's fucking the guards in the prison, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
You
Wonder
can't...
what she looks like now.
You know what? I saw a picture of her. Mm-hmm. The most recent one that I've seen of her was from a couple years ago. And she actually looks much better than she looked back in the 80s. Well, because in the 80s, she had those big giant glasses and that terrible, like, big permy hair.
Yeah.
Now she actually looks, you know, I hate to say it, but she actually looks good.
Okay.
I mean, she's quite an attractive woman.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that some of the guards were like, all right. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't look all skanky or, like, nothing like that. Because, you know, I mean, she's been in prison a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, she works in prison. She's kind of like, I think she works
female
like
prison, though.
Yeah.
You know,
but yeah.
It's not the same kind of violent atmosphere.
Yeah, it's really not.
No.
I mean, shit does happen in there, but it's really not the same as the male prisons.
You know,
it's not. Because, you know, you get a bunch of dudes together, like a bunch of dude criminals
dudes
together.
Dudes go fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's the women, not so much.
From what I've heard based on little programs and shit that I've seen over the years is that most of those female prisons, they end up going to these small kind of like little satellite camps that they don't have real high populations. If they're good, they'll go to these little satellite camps where they'll have little jobs that they do. Some of them they actually kind of bust them down to county offices, and they'll clean offices in there after hours, like janitors. And so I guess you could say they're kind of like not really work release, just very minimum security. Because women tend not to be flight risks, and they're not violent most of the time anyway. But my understanding is that the atmosphere is basically women and girls in relationship with each other, and there's like little family units form where there's the husband and the wife and the adopted children, and it's a bunch of relationships. If they're long-term prisoners, that's the way it is. So it's not dudes fight and kill each other in prison.
Yeah. Well, dudes fight and kill each other on the outside, too.
They're in there, they got fucking high testosterone levels, they're packed in there, and they're fucking aggressive, and they're in a bad mood, and they're constantly trying to assert dominance and fucking scare off fucking attackers and shit. Scare off enemies, so projecting fucking violence and strength and I guess you could say an image of violence and strength is a way of keeping yourself safe in a men's prison.
Well, yeah, isn't that one of the things they always tell like new prisoners when you go in there? It's like you got to go fucking
go in there and fight
the biggest, the biggest, meanest looking dude.
Get your ass kicked and fight. Let everybody know that you will fight.
Right, so no one will fuck with you.
Right.
Like I said, the female prisons are a generally different dynamic, and I'm not saying they don't have fights and shit in there because they do.
They're fighting over girls though.
But yeah, it's not.
Anything
like the same.
Yeah.
Chicks are not the same. Although, I mean, we've talked about some crazy bitches on this show.
Yeah.
That were just as crazy as dudes. Yeah. It just doesn't happen as often. You know what I mean?
Do not like women my understanding, women in a prison situation feel isolated and under threat, and they don't like women do not like to be alone when they're threatened, so they start grouping up in little groups.
Which makes sense, sure.
Right. Guys, no, when they're threatened they become islands basically.
Because they think everybody's out to get them.
Yeah, paranoia and shit.
Yeah. All right, so if you want,
Once you run some commercials,
Okay,
and I'll
you
make
would
some
throw some more ice in there
Yeah.
and a little bit more drink too.
Yeah.
And then I'll run a couple commercials,
Yeah.
and then when we get back, we're gonna talk about Andrea Yates, which is a lot more complicated case, just because, like I said, there's a lot of severe mental illness involved, and not gonna lie, I don't really feel bad for Susan Smith. I kind of feel bad for Andrea Yates. I mean, she's really got problems. So we will be back in just a couple of minutes.
And now is acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed holes of their road, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gang. And the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.
All right, we're back again. Got drinks filled up, and we're heading back into another case. Jeffy Hart said, given that there are women prisoners that have and love their kids, I'm curious on how they would feel about someone like Susan Smith being in their midst. I am also curious. She didn't seem to have complained about, any kind of treatment or any kind of way from being in prison, which I'm sure she would have complained about.
No, they probably felt sorry for her.
Maybe they did.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, those guys, they're bad. Yeah.
Karen Lee said, wow, 30 years does not seem that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I don't know if they're going to let her out. She's just eligible for parole
they're not
next
gonna let her
year because she's served 30 years, but I don't know if they're going to let her out
Chances
or
of
not.
them letting her out on her first parole here, no.
Especially
that comes up every year.
I mean, especially as notorious as
and when
she
she's
is.
54 now,
Yeah.
53 probably.
Yeah.
No, they're not gonna let her out. Maybe when
Yeah,
she's about
she's
60.
exactly a year older than I
Yeah.
am.
When she's 60, they might.
Yeah, because they're like, well, you probably could use
Yeah.
like a little old lady and you probably won't
Yeah.
do any harm. Yeah, I
They're
mean,
just gonna sap all the life out of her.
yeah. I mean, I can't be too mad about it, gonna say. I don't, honestly, I agree with the jury. I don't think they should have given her the death penalty. But, I really don't think they should let her out, at least until she's, like, very old. Because, I don't know. To me, she doesn't seem like, at least from what I've heard from other people that know her, that visit her in prison, like other people that serve time with her and stuff, it doesn't really seem like she's matured to any great degree. So I don't know if I'd really trust her to be able to get her shit together.
Well, she can't mature in prison.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not a dynamic environment.
I mean, she was only 23 when she went in there.
She's frozen at 23.
Right. And even when she was 23, she seemed very teenagery.
Yeah.
And she still seems kind of teenagery to me.
Yeah, that's the
Like
level of development she's at.
Right.
She's not going to be developing much in prison.
Right. It doesn't really seem like she's... Right. She doesn't really seem... And she doesn't really seem to... I mean, at least from what I've heard of her, like, saying, like, recently, she doesn't really seem to grasp, like, the gravity of what she did. She doesn't seem all that sorry about it. You know what I mean? And it's... David, her husband, her ex-husband, he had wanted her to get the death penalty because, you know, he couldn't fucking... And he was especially infuriated that she had lied about it. Like, she knew that those kids were dead the whole time and, like, tried to blame it on somebody else all that time.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If they were to release her, she's not a threat. She doesn't have the physical power or the motivation to do it. Her kids are dead. She can't have any more kids. So you could let her out. I don't think she'd do any damage. But, you know, I don't know. You could let her out. It wouldn't make much difference.
It probably wouldn't.
No. But, fuck. I don't know. Would I let her out? I'd have to meet her.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say, like, unless I'm just going by interviews I've read with her, like, from recently, like, from a year or two ago. Like, she just seems still...
Keeping her in there doesn't bring the kids back.
Yeah, I mean, she just still seems very narcissistic. She seems like she's not all that sorry about it. Like, she kind of makes noises like she's sorry and she feels bad about it, but I don't really
think any of that's there.
No. I don't... She doesn't really seem to feel that much remorse about it.
I don't think any of that's there.
She's very self-absorbed. She seems very self-absorbed.
Yeah, she turned inward on herself.
Yeah.
She just protected herself.
And I think she was like that before.
Yeah.
I mean, everything was like me, like what she wanted. So that's what I mean about her being very immature. She really didn't... She just worried about what she wanted.
I just look at it like keeping her in there doesn't bring the kids back. Letting her out probably wouldn't make any difference. I don't think she's a threat.
It seems to like not make a difference one way or the other, to be honest.
It would just be a toss of the coin of whether or not... I don't think they'll let her out.
They probably won't.
I don't think so.
Like I said, someone as notorious as that.
Right.
I don't know. They might let her out later, but her first parole hearing, I doubt it.
No. They might let her wait another 10
But
years.
we'll see. We'll have to see what happens next year. But Victor said, wow, I didn't realize how young she was when this happened. Yeah, she married when she was 19. And she was already pregnant then. So she'd had 2 kids by the time she was 23.
Some people might have pity on her thinking, well, she's backwards and immature because she was a kid when she did this and then she's been in prison all this time so she hasn't changed. Let her out. You know, they might say that. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. That's what I mean. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't feel bad for her. But like you said, it seems like it won't make a difference.
I'd have to meet her.
Yeah. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Andrea Yates. And like I said, this is a lot more complex case, I guess, just in the sense of like all this fucking crazy shit going on. So Andrea Yates, in case you didn't know, we'll just kind of give you a little summary of what happened before we get like into all the details and stuff. Back in 2001, this happened in Texas.
By the way, Victor's in the chat.
Hey, Victor, what's up?
It was these women that made Victor gay.
Yeah, it's whatever the show topic is. That's what made Victor gay this week.
Gay, yeah. I'm sorry to what happened to you, Victor. These women made you gay like that.
But yeah.
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 These bad women.
I forgot what I was saying.
I don't know.
You interrupted me. Yeah. And now I totally lost my train of thought.
It was good. You were talking about the new case.
I know, but I was going somewhere with it, and now I can't remember. But yeah. Oh, okay. So going over. So 2001, she's from Texas.
Yeah.
And she drowned all 5 of her children in the bathtub, one by one. They ranged in age. The oldest was 7 years old. The youngest was 6 months old. It was 4 boys and 1 little girl. The baby was a little girl. So, yeah.
7, man.
This is also...
That's old enough to know what the hell's going on.
Well, yeah. Yeah, we'll get into that. This is, like, also pretty horrific.
Yeah, this is the one that fucked
But like I said, this whole situation is horrific. Just
I wanted
everything.
to smash this woman when I heard about it.
Everything about this is messed up.
She crazy.
So, now the thing about it, like I said, spoiler alert, she actually did get, in 2001, she didn't get the death penalty. They did seek the death penalty, but she didn't get it because the jury thought it wasn't warranted. She did get life in prison, but then 5 years later, the conviction was overturned, and she was actually given not guilty by reason of insanity and was sent to a mental hospital where she still is to this day. And like I said, she does not really seem to want to be let out because they have told her that she can petition, to be let out. That doesn't mean they're going to let her out, but she can petition to be let out, and she always waives her right to do that. She really does not seem to want to be let out. She seems content where she is. Like I said, this woman, I'm not excusing it, but this woman is severely, severely mentally ill. One psychiatrist that treated her said that this was the sickest patient that they had ever encountered. And we'll get into this fucking woman, this is crazy. So, and I will note that getting an insanity defense, like a successful insanity defense in Texas, is very, very difficult because the criteria is very, very stringent. But they actually did think it was warranted in her case.
Yeah, you have to not know it was wrong.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The weird thing about, she seemed to know it was wrong, but like I said, she seemed to have, which we'll get into, she seemed to have like some really bizarre delusions about why she was doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if she thought she was doing something good, but kind of. Yeah, I mean, she had some real problems. So yeah, so she's still in a mental facility to this day, and like I said, does not seem to want to be let out. She was actually transferred to a lower security one, but she's still there. So she was born in Houston, Texas, and had 4 older siblings. Now, she was raised Catholic, but not super, super religious as far as I could find. Now, kind of like Susan Smith, although to an even more, like a greater degree, Andrea Yates was a very, very high achiever. They said she was very, very intelligent. She was actually, she graduated in 1982, and she was actually class valedictorian. She was captain of the swim team. She was officer in the Honor Society, and everybody said she was just like a go-getter. She was just like very, very intelligent, very high achieving, one of those. However, something that goes along with this personality type sometimes is depression and eating disorders. She had bulimia a lot, growing up through high school.
Something about this chick always reminded me of Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, she does kind of look a little bit like that. So she was obviously like, doing all this shit on the outside, like I said, very, very high achieving, very top of her class and all that other kind of stuff. And then behind the scenes, bulimia, other depression, suicide ideation, things of that nature. So that was kind of going on when she was a teenager. Now, she went to nursing school, and she actually graduated and worked as a nurse for several years. I believe she worked as a nurse for 8 years, from 1986 until 1994. And everybody that met her said she was very compassionate. She was a people pleaser, which again, I think that kind of factored into some shit later on. And again, very high achieving, very intelligent. Now, in the summer of 1989, she meets the guy that would become her husband, whose name is Rusty Yates. Now, she met him. He also lived in the same apartment complex that she lived in. And they met and got married. Now, they got married a few years later. I think it was 1993. And David, that was Susan's husband. Rusty. We're talking about Rusty now. Rusty was very, very religious in kind of a weird and not like in a mainline kind of way. He was kind of an acolyte of this weird, what was the dude's name? Michael Warnecki or something like that, who was this weird street preacher, essentially.
Never heard of him.
Who was very, very fundamentalist, very much, women are the devil, and they have to be your servants, or they're all into witchcraft, that kind of shit. Also, they had
Where did they come up with this shit?
the Bible, they say.
That's not in there.
But I know, but I mean, they're just saying, that women should be subservient. If you don't make them be subservient, then they just become witches, that kind of shit. Also, they had kind of like a quiverful thing going on, where it's like it was your duty to have as many children as possible, which is one of the things that caused a lot of the problems. So Rusty, he marries Andrea, and basically he's like, we're gonna have as many children as God will allow. So basically he just wants to knock her up right away, and she's just going to keep having babies like forever. Now, apparently she kind of got into the shit too. I don't know if she was into it like because she was really into it, or she was just into it because she wanted to make him happy. I'm not really entirely sure. Even before they were married, like I said, all through her teenage years, she had pretty severe mental problems. She had a lot of eating disorders, depression. She had had some suicide attempts. She had actually, I believe, been in a psychiatric hospital for a short time when she was a teenager as well. So she had some problems prior to this. So yeah, so he wants to have as many babies as possible. So, easy for him. He doesn't have to carry them in his fucking body, but you know what I mean. So he was actually an engineer at NASA. So he made some decent money, but he was still a religious weirdo though. So they buy this house in Friendswood, Texas. Now they have their first kid, whose name is Noah, in 1994. Now, not too long after Noah was born, Rusty got another job, and this was in Florida. It was actually in Seminole, which I think is over on the West Coast, over near St. Petersburg. I think it's kind of over in that area. So they go over there. Another thing that Rusty and his weird religious beliefs were into was that they were very into this whole thing where the world and materialism and stuff like that was evil. So it's you shouldn't have too much stuff or too many modern conveniences or things like that. So he was always kind of seeking to downsize. But the thing about it is that he would always downsize her stuff, but not his stuff. Which I was like, well, that's typical, that's isn't funny. It? He's like, hey, let's have a garage sale and we'll sell all your shit. Yeah. We'll keep my shit. I need this shit though. Yeah. But all your stuff can go because that's just crap. Yeah. But yeah, so it was that kind of situation. So they had lived in a decent house because, like I said, he was an engineer. He had a good job and he got paid quite a bit. So they had lived in a nice house in Texas, but then when they moved to Florida, they moved to this kind of trailer, So they
downsizing.
They lived in a trailer for a little while.
It was temporary.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Now, so Andrea has a couple more kids.
So they were there for
a couple
while.
more boys, and another thing too is that one of the things that he wouldn't let her have, because of course she had a job and an apartment and everything like that prior to this. Mm-hmm. She was a nurse. She'd been a nurse for 8 years. She had her own place, all this other kind of stuff. But when she married this douche, he's like, not only do you have to start pumping out babies, but you have to live in this small trailer. Well, and now she's got 3 kids, all of whom are little, in this little bitty trailer. And you're not allowed to have disposable diapers.
What?
You're not allowed. You have to have cloth diapers.
Oh, reusable stuff. They're trying to save money.
Fuck that. Jesus Christ.
Gotta wash them all by hand and then.
Yeah. Oh, that's so gross.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. She had to do it.
That's what I mean.
And they're gonna say, well, they did that back in the Bible.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And like I said, it's very easy for the dude in this situation because he doesn't have to do any of this crap. Yeah. And
he's
I'm just
penny pinching.
And I'm gonna say just right here, I'm not saying that Rusty was necessarily responsible for everything that happened, but he for sure contributed because
putting all that pressure on her.
He was, I mean, basically it was his idea. You need to have as many babies as possible. You need to live in this tiny little trailer. You need to not work, not have a social structure. He did kind of isolate her. It's very he's very, very controlling.
And it didn't have to be this way.
No, of course not.
2 houses up or 3 houses up on this road here, there's a nice big house there. And it's a blonde man and a woman. I saw the woman. She was at the store. What do you call it?
Dollar General.
At the Dollar General store with her kids.
The Dollar General.
She's got 9 kids, and more coming. And she's good-looking blonde. Probably she's in her 30s, and she's in there with the kids. And it's like a little army of trained soldiers. Some of them were in the cart that she's pushing, and the rest of them were all kind of like marching behind and doing around. And they were very well ordered. And little boy saw me and he goes, "Strong man." About that day. And I went, "Yeah," like that. And they all started laughing. And the mom was there and says, "You live up the street over there?" She said, "Yeah, yeah." And he says, "Yeah, you're famous because your kids run out and fucking get candy from the garbage truck." And she goes, "Yeah, every time the garbage truck comes, they got candy for them.
They bring them all
and
candy.
They run down there and they do one at a time.
And
the garbage men are giving them candy one at a time. They
all come out like all organized.
They're all organized
and like get a piece of candy from the garbage man.
Now, I don't think they're religious. They're just having a lot of kids.
They just really like kids.
Yep. Every one of them little blondes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the Midwich.
So it doesn't have to be
place.
a fucking. And my mom, she came from a family of 9. She had one brother.
My mom was they had 8.
Yeah, my mom came from a family of 9, and
which I can't imagine.
Now they were religious though, and fucking. It was like a maximum security prison in a certain way. Everybody was dying to get the fuck out of there at 16, 17, because you had to share everything, and fucking everything was communal living. You got real sick of that.
A lot of times I do, and not in all situations, because I know some people just really do like children and they want to have a lot of them. But it does seem like in the majority of these cases, it's usually like some kind of weird religious thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, look at the fucking Duggars, for Christ's sake. Let's not. Ooh, we should do a show about them. I get demonetized.
Well, the weird thing, you can't have all those kids if you can't afford them. You know what I mean? But this family up the street can afford them.
Yeah, evidently.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe they
look like they're having fun.
They just seem to really like.
And you look at her, man. You wouldn't think that she had that many kids. Her build is just like normal. She's not. She's slender.
Some people, some bitches are lucky like that.
That bitch snatches like a clown car. People just jumping out of it, running right after another.
Out of it, right.
Those kids all look to be the same age almost. You know what I mean? Like the difference between them, she must be constantly pregnant.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like
James says I got 7 siblings. It's crazy. Yeah, my mom does too. I have 3. My parents have because I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. So my parents had 4, and even that, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, we're spaced out. We weren't all little at the same time. Like, I was born in 72. Like, my brother wasn't born until 4. Like, I was 4, like, when he was born. And then my sister wasn't born until 79. And then my other brother wasn't born until 1986. So there's kind of, like, a big gap. So it's not like we were just, like, a bunch of kids running around in diapers at the same time, which that sounds like a nightmare. But my mom loves kids.
Yeah.
So she not only had 4... but she also ran a daycare for a long time, like in the house, and also like ran a daycare because she just loves children. I was like, I didn't get that gene.
I was the only child. My parents weren't together long enough to have any more than me.
I know. I always thought that was weird because I have never experienced, I mean, other than the first 4 years of my life when I was an only child, but I don't really remember that. I have never experienced life without siblings.
Yeah.
So it must be, I've known a lot of people that were only children, and I was like, wow, that must be weird.
I don't know any different.
I mean, but yeah, you wouldn't know any different, would you? Mm-hmm. But
no, I was just in a constant battle against stepdads.
Yeah. I wouldn't trade it though, because my siblings are awesome.
Yeah.
They're all just basically, we're all very much alike, which is weird. Because I've heard from other people I know that have siblings, they're always like, oh my god, we're so different. It's like me and my siblings are not. Even though like we're all super, super similar. Even though we're like pretty far apart in age. So yeah. So they keep having all these babies. They're living in this little bitty trailer. Now, by the time they finally move back to Texas, they move to Houston, and now they're downsizing even more and move into, like, a fucking motorhome, right? So now they live in a fucking motorhome, like, in a mobile home park thing, and this poor woman, her husband goes off, toddles off to work every day, and she's stuck here with these little tiny babies in this little tiny, I think they said that it was like 350 square feet or something like that, with no disposable diapers, none of that kind of stuff. So, great. Now, as I mentioned, Andrea Yates had struggles with mental health pretty much her entire life. It also ran in her family, which I believe it was one of her parents and some of her siblings and maybe like some other people in the family too had committed suicide or attempted it, because depression, things like that do tend to run in families. And her family did seem to have a very, very high instance of it. So she had that, but the thing about it was that it seemed like each time she had a kid, that she would get, you get postpartum depression. A lot of women have that. It's probably like, I think it's 1 in 10, I think is the thing that I heard, postpartum depression. But then there's an even more extreme version of that, 1 in 1,000 women get, which is postpartum psychosis, which is where basically you get delusional. And a very common delusion that women that have this get is that they feel that they're going to do harm to their children or they're going to kill their children. And it's fairly common, but that does seem to be what she had. Like I said, she'd been in and out with psychiatrists, so she knew that she had issues. But it seemed like every time she had another kid, like it would just exacerbate it further. You know what I mean?
My mom was in the State Department. One of the women that worked at the consulate with her in Brazil had a kid and went through the postpartum depression thing that they were talking about, and they were treating her. And the husband turned his back on her, and she grabbed the baby and jumped out the window, 23rd floor.
Yeah, that's fucking sad.
It's
not that uncommon.
Yeah, and then they evacuated the dude, and they replaced him.
God, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and we've talked about that before, because pregnancy, and you have some experiences too, because like how much hormones and shit like that can like fuck you up.
Hell yeah.
Pregnancy is very extreme. It's a very extreme, cocktail of shit going on in your body. It's, and it actually surprises me that it doesn't happen more often.
Yeah. For people new to the show, I'm very open about the shit that I do. I do hormone therapy, and I fuck around with all kinds of anabolic steroids and stuff just for anti-aging and therapeutics and working out. And I've had some hormonal profiles sometimes temporarily that are just fucked up, really heavy in progesterone, real low in estrogen and high in testosterone, or the other way around where you got a lot of estrogen in you and a lot of progesterone. And some of that shit, you're a werewolf on one end of the spectrum. At the same time, you're also like a pregnant woman, man. You're fucking weird as shit. And you kind of gives you a taste of what women are like, what their eternal world is like. A lot of fear and anxiety, worrywart stuff.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Feelings of insecurity.
Yep.
And so I understand it.
That's what made me laugh is that. Yeah. So when he told me finally, like what Tren was making him feel like, like after he kind of like got over it a little bit, and he was telling me about like this, that, and the other thing, and I said to him, I was like, oh, so like women feel all the time?
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is like I told another one of our female friends about it, and she said the exact same thing. Oh, like we feel all the time. I was like, yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. I was like, now you know how we feel. There's a
lot of stuff on the internet. They have female psychologists and shit and scientists, and they're fucking one of them you can fucking search on there. This British guy does a interview with this psychologist, and she's female, and she just talks about what testosterone actually does. And the name of the video is called "Testosterone is a Hell of a Drug." It's a fucking great, and it's absolutely true. It changes you, I think, for the better. But if you start going into fucking super physiological fucking doses of test, and then certain like 19-nortestosterone, certain esters like trenbolone, man, tren is fucking notoriously mind-bending. That's the Mount Everest of them. It's like the LSD of steroids.
Yeah, you were like a crazy person.
Oh yeah, you're okay for about 2.5 months, 3 months. Month 4 and 5, I was on it for 5 months because I thought I could do it. Because you're kind of out of your mind.
But you don't realize that you're out of your mind. You think everything's normal, but everybody else is
everybody
like,
else there just
bro,
making this up. They're making. They became.
what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, became basically like the Goblin, from Spider-Man. Pretty fucking evil. Kind of like a descent into evil. Weird. Although you're simpy as shit too. It's weird.
Yeah.
Erratic behavior.
But I'm just saying that. So you have some experience with.
Yeah. Well,
like a hormonal imbalance like that,
yeah.
that can absolutely make you fucking crazy.
Because hormones are about feelings. So this bitch's feelings are running out of fucking, running out of control, and then she's having this weird ideation and stuff on top of that, weird fantasies and paranoias and mental illusions. I was having illusions too, or I would call it delusions.
Yeah.
They weren't that bad, but because I kind of knew they were delusions. I'd have to come to Jenny with I had delusions that she was cheating on me, but I'd already been warned that Trend does that.
Yeah.
Because
that's a very common.
I just had to come and check.
That men on
it's
Trend
real
have.
common for guys. I just had to check. You're
like
not
they always
cheating
think
on
their
me.
wives or girlfriends are cheating.
Yeah, it makes you think that you're cheating on. And so you're not cheating on me, are you? He goes, no. And I say, I thought so. You know what I mean?
I was like, when the fuck would I have time to do that?
Yeah, because we're together all the time. But it's just feelings, weird feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, so you can see how.
Yeah.
Tammy said there's a channel called Fundy Fridays. Yeah, I love Fundy Fridays, actually. Does a lot on the Duggars. Yeah, I haven't watched any of her stuff on the Duggars, but yeah, I've watched some of her other stuff. She's great. She Was Kissed by Fire says, I've got two kids. Had them 4 years apart, so I wouldn't have to deal with two tiny babies. Now I'm raising a puppy, and it's like having a baby all over again. Yeah, I mean...
They grow up faster, though.
Well, that's true. Yeah, the fur babies are... Because we have kitties.
Yeah. And
our kitty Pookie is just like... She's pretty much just like
She thinks she's a child.
She thinks she's a human child, for sure.
She doesn't understand it. We hand-raised her. She
was abandoned.
Yeah.
She was abandoned by her mom. Or her mom got killed or something. Somebody just found her.
That was just a story that she
know.
tells. She just came out of a litter, and she was selling the litter.
But we got her when she was really little. Like, her eyes were still blue.
Yeah.
So, that's really young.
She may have been weaned a little too young, I think.
Maybe.
It's hard to say.
But she's like our kid. She follows us around everywhere, and most of the time in the show you can see her walking around.
Waits
in the
for us to
background.
come home. She'll be waiting by the door.
That's why if you see Spock like moving around back there, it's not
Spock.
Ghost. She's back there like pushing on him because she's like, you guys are not paying attention to me. Come on.
Yeah.
So they're in this fucking motorhome, right, back in Texas, and they have a fourth kid, Luke. And after this, Andrea really, really seemed to spiral downwards. It's bad enough that she had all of these mental issues before, which are exacerbated by these pregnancies and this postpartum depression. Also, this whole fundamentalist kind of dogma that they're getting into. She is also, and this I think is relevant too, and you see this a lot in these types of girls that grow up like in high school and they're super high achievers. They're usually top of their class and stuff, but then they have eating disorders and things. Those types of girls are usually people pleasers, and they're usually super, super critical of themselves. They're perfectionists, and they feel as though nothing they do will ever, ever, ever be good enough. So they're always like striving to be better, but they always feel like they're failing. You know what I mean? And I really feel like Andrea had that going on too. She was trying to have all these babies because that's what Rusty wanted. She was trying to be the perfect mother because that's what the religion was telling her that was her job was now. And she just felt like she was failing, that she was fucking it up. And so she was just wallowing in self-loathing, I guess. So around this time, not too long after she had her fourth baby, she essentially had a nervous breakdown. In 1999, June of 1999, Rusty comes home and finds her just completely, he's like, she was just sitting there trembling and basically chewing on her fingers. Like, not her fingernails, chewing on her fingers. Like, self-harming is what she was doing. The following day, a suicide attempt, she took a huge overdose of pills. So they took her to the hospital, and they put her on antidepressants for a little while. But she did another suicide attempt. Actually, she was going to cut her own throat, and she begged her husband to please just let her kill herself, because she just couldn't take it anymore. So they put her in the hospital again. And at this point, they seemed to find a combination of medications that worked for her. Prior to this, I believe they had only given her antidepressants. However, when they gave her antidepressants and an antipsychotic, Haldol, that actually seemed to improve her condition pretty much immediately. Like, she almost went back to normal, like the way that she was prior to having all of these kids. Now, one thing that they suggested that Rusty do was that, look, your poor wife is with these fucking 4 babies in this 350 square foot fucking bus, essentially. It was like a converted bus they were living in.
Yeah.
It's like, please get her a real fucking house. Right. You know what I mean? They told him. It's like, that's, she shouldn't have to live like that. It's not helping her situation.
Who told him that?
The doctors, basically, were like, it's just not a good environment for her to be in. It's like, she's very isolated. She doesn't have any friends. Yeah. You know what I mean? She doesn't have a job. She doesn't have anything out of the home anymore.
The dude's got money, man.
She's lost her identity, essentially.
This dude must just be dumb.
Well, he just seems like a controlling asshole to me, is what he seems like. He just wanted to keep her under his thumb. His religion said that women should be subservient and they should just have babies, and that's their job.
Right.
To just take care of kids and suffer, apparently.
Nothing wrong with a woman just being a housewife. It's just that don't fucking make it a prison.
That's what it was. I mean, that's what I mean.
Make it a fun environment. You know what I mean? Having his space and go playing out in the backyard.
And I absolutely do not like I said, I'm not real into kids. I never had any kids, anything like that. It's just not for me. But I absolutely do not judge women that want to be stay-at-home moms and they want to be a mom and that's their role. That's cool. Like, if they chose that,
people got to come from somewhere,
and that's what they want to do, then cool. Yeah. But then also cool, like, if you want to have a kid and it's like, well, I'm going to take the kid to daycare, I'm going to have my own life, I'm going to have a job, and that's awesome too. Like, but it just should be up to you, like, what your choice is.
I was just watching this talk by a woman who was talking about feminism and stuff and where it came from and how old it is and what kind of woman was actually involved in starting it and everything. And she goes on, you guys got to look at the statistics. Not all women are the same. All right?
Well, obviously.
Some women, and the majority of them, are very happy as like moms and housewives, and they keep the population going. There are other portions of them that don't want anything to do with kids. It's just not in them. And they're not lesbian, they're straight, or mostly straight or something. I don't think it has anything to do with. She went on to say that. But then there's some women that are lesbian and they're kind of like feminist and they're actually kind of competing with the men trying to get prestige positions and stuff, and that they're in this movement. And because they're kind of running that movement, or they're very high incident, she can just explain it better than I can. They really don't have the right to talk for the average woman, because the average woman is not motivated for that. She doesn't want to work a corporate job, really. She'd be happy just staying at home, raising kids and having fun and taking care of the house. And that's a very important role in all societies. You've got to have a breeding population. If not, then you'll run out of people quickly.
Well, the thing about it is that I'm a big advocate of just, do that if you want to.
Right.
But if you don't want to do that, you shouldn't have to do
You're
that.
Right, yeah. I
like,
totally
somebody
agree.
got to clean the fucking house.
But
it don't got to be me. You know what I mean? Somebody got to do it. I don't care if it's a man.
You don't do it because you work outside the house.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm
I'll
just
clean
saying.
the house. I'll fucking cook.
Yeah.
She comes home from work. I got food ready for her.
Yeah.
But I am a cook.
Right.
All right.
And that's the way, that's the way it should be. That's
it's just a division of labor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't see labor as gendered, and I think that's like a lot of people think that it's like, oh, cleaning the house or taking care of kids, that's something women should be doing. Not necessarily. Like, a dude can do it too.
Dudes are fucking...
They can also do it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
if... Back before this war started, they had some Russian guys, students. Vladimir Putin was fucking visiting them, and one of the guys raised his hands. He says, because, Vladimir had this damn image of being macho. The kid asked him, he said, Mr. President, what should we do as boys to become more like men? And he goes, learn how to cook. And they laughed. He goes, what are you laughing for? But you think the Mongols fucking had their moms with them when they were, out in the field fighting these wars? No, they knew how to cook. Says real men know how to cook.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I think that everybody should be able to do just regular life maintenance shit.
Yeah.
Everybody should
That's
be
the
able
basic.
to kind of like cook some basic shit.
that's the
Everybody
basic.
should know how to clean stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody should know how to do like basic car
And you're
maintenance.
maintaining your own area of
That
operation.
kind of shit.
Like Jen keeps it pretty clean in here because she's in here all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just come in and vacuum.
Yeah.
You know,
That's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty much all.
so,
this.
you know,
Like I
that's
keep
okay.
shit wiped down and stuff. It's a
Yeah.
little bit dusty, but that's
Yeah.
alright. It doesn't bother
And
me.
then the rest of the house I'll vacuum. But she's at work.
Yeah, I'm not home.
You know?
most
I don't
of
have to
the
leave the
time.
house and make money. I got my VA money.
Right.
You know.
And like I said,
She got to
that's
go out and work.
right. And that's just the way. And like
Yeah.
I said, that's why I think the problem is when labor like that is gendered and it absolutely shouldn't be. Like I said, everybody should
Yeah.
clean up their own space. Everybody should be able to
Sharp
cook their own meals if they
knives.
need to.
Sharp knives, fire, and meat, man. Men should know all about that.
I know, and it's like it's so funny
Yeah.
because I just feel like for a long time it's like, oh, cooking like in the kitchen, that was like seen as a womany thing.
Yeah,
but it's
no.
like, oh, barbecuing now, that's a man
that's a
thing.
man's thing. Yeah.
Which is dumb. It's just
Yeah.
like it's all cooking.
the same thing.
It's all cooking.
It's all cooking.
Everybody should be able to like just cook. If you don't have to
Make
be
fucking
like
pastries, man.
yeah, you don't have to be like a chef or
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
like Tom is.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know,
I'm not a chef. I
well,
was
you know what I
trained by
mean. But
chefs.
you're really but
Yeah.
you're a really good cook.
I was trained as by
So I'm
chef.
just saying, but everybody should know how to make a few basic
Yeah.
things.
Making bread. I'm making yogurt now.
Yeah.
My yogurt's fucking good.
It was good. Like we
Yeah.
had some of it yesterday.
Yeah. Making it in the Instant Pot.
Making yogurt in an Instant Pot.
Yeah.
And also
Takes a long time, then you gotta sift it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pain in the ass, but it's good.
It's fucking real good. And you can just keep working on it until it becomes cream cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, just maybe we can
Make it out of gallon
Make some
milk.
cream cheese. We'll get some bagels and
Yeah.
just put that shit on there. But yeah, so I'm just saying. But the fact that Rusty had these really antiquated ideas of what she should be doing and I kind of feel like maybe she believed in it too, but I feel like more that she went along with it because she loved him and she was a people pleaser and she wanted to make him happy. And like I said, like a lot of women that are these kind of like high achieving girls with these eating disorders and stuff, they usually are just like constantly strive. They have to be perfect. Everything they do, it has to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, then they just completely like shut down because they failed. And so then the self-loathing starts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that she had that as well. So yeah, so she has this, they put her on some antidepressants and they put her on an antipsychotic Haldol. And she actually really did seem to improve greatly. You know, they said she went almost back to the way she was prior to having children. So they actually moved to a real house, for Christ's sake, because Rusty did have the money. So he actually did that at least. Like, he did buy a house when they told him, it's like, for Christ's sake, your wife's living in a fucking bus. So, you know what I mean? With no diapers or anything. So he actually buys her a real house. And for a while, everything seemed okay. Like, she seemed almost back to normal. There was some video of her, like, having a little birthday party for one of the kids, and she seemed fine. However, as time went on, it really did seem that she deteriorated again, had another nervous breakdown, another couple of suicide attempts, and was sent to a psychiatric hospital again. And at this point, she was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Now, the psychiatrist who talked to her at this time period, whose name was Dr. Eileen Starbranch, she strongly recommended that the couple have no more children, because she's like, every time you have it, because they had 4 at this point, they're like, every time she has another child, her mental state deteriorates, and it's getting worse like each time. So it's like, please do not have any more children, you know, because it will just
Fuck her up more.
It's just like, you know, all of the progress that we made on her will disappear. So then Rusty, whose whole idea is like, we need to have as many kids as possible, 7 weeks after Andrea was discharged from the hospital, she was pregnant again. They actually went to the psychiatrist and said she's going off her antipsychotic medication so she can get pregnant again. And the psychiatrists were like, please do not take her off her medication, because that was helping her, and you can't just stop taking that medication. You have to, like, slowly, you know what I mean? You have to, like, be monitored through all of that stuff, because she was on, like, a big cocktail of them. But they were helping her. But she was going to go off him cold turkey because Rusty's like, no, we want to have another baby.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We, as in she was in on this too, or he made her say
he wants to have another baby.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like is probably what
And then
the
he made her say
situation
that.
was. Oh, and she's like, oh yeah, totally. I totally want to do that too.
Yeah. After he jammed so many into her so quickly.
That's what I mean.
This motherfucker's not well grounded in reality.
And no, he's absolutely not.
No, he's off in religious la la land. He read it in the Bible, so it's true. Or somebody told him it was in the Bible, so it's true. That's another thing.
Yeah.
You can go into that Pauline material and pull anything out of Paul and make anything out of it, like Legos. And it's totally unrelated to normal life.
Yeah, it's just
Street preachers and shit.
yeah, that was this whole fucking situation.
Yeah.
But and the saddest thing about this is that Andrea seemed aware that having another baby was going to be a bad idea.
Of course.
She seemed aware that her mental illness was giving her what they call homicidal ideation. She later confessed that she had been thinking about killing her children for 2 years before she actually did it, and she was terrified that she was actually going to do it. It seemed like she wasn't shy about telling her husband, about telling psychiatrists, about something like, look, I'm having these horrible intrusive thoughts about hurting my children, and I don't want to do that. Please help me. And it seemed like they tried to, but it wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't enough. And it just felt like Rusty, one, he was not super supportive. Like, you know, he did do some things like to go along with like what the psychiatrist recommended, but in the end he started like blaming them, and he's like blaming the drugs she was on, even though the drugs were actually helping her. And he was just, he would say shit like, oh, people with depression, they just need a swift kick in the pants, they'll be fine. And I'm just like, really, dude? Like, he just didn't really seem, I don't know, he just really didn't seem to take the severity of her illness.
He's delusional.
All that seriously. Like, I think he thought that, oh, she's just going to snap out of it one day and we're going to have all these babies. You know what I mean? I think he thought, like, even after she killed the kids and, you know, and she got, well, I mean, she didn't get off because they sent her to a mental hospital. But I think he was still thinking to some extent, he doesn't anymore because I think he's remarried now because this was a long time ago. But he seemed to think, oh, well, when she gets out of the mental hospital, we'll get back together and start having babies again. I'm like, delusional. Are you fucking high?
Yeah, he's crazy.
She's very severely ill. This woman is severely mentally ill.
And the idea,
and I don't know if she's ever going to be able to get better.
Yeah. Well, he's delusional just to think that they would let her out.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, she is a very, very sick person. Yeah. And the saddest thing about this to me is that she knew how sick she was, and she was afraid that she was going to do something. She's like, she keeps having these thoughts. She can't, you know, and having these like actions, and she's like, and she can't control it. And she was like terrified that she was going to do something, and she kept trying to get them to help her. You know what I mean? Get them to stop her from doing it. You know what I mean? So that's what kind of makes me sad about this whole fucking thing, is that there were so many opportunities. And yes, like a lot of psychiatrists did try to help her. They did put her on medication that did seem to help. But then, like I said, stupid Rusty comes in and is like, oh, we should have another baby. Even though the psychiatrist specifically said, please, please, please do not do that. Because every time she has another baby, like the psychosis gets worse and worse, like each successive time. And it's just going to be a bad idea. But he wanted to do it anyway. So they did. So in March of 2000, she had a daughter named Mary. And everything seemed okay for a little while. But then her dad died. And she seemed to have a really hard time like dealing with that. She didn't really have a lot of like family left. She didn't have like a lot of like wider support. Like I said, she'd kind of been isolated. She didn't have a job anymore. She didn't have like friends or a social network or anything like that. So I kind of feel like the death of her dad was sort of like a catalyst also. So after her dad died, she seemed to really go off the deep end. She stopped taking her medication, which again, you should never do that, especially if you're not under the supervision of your physician. And she started self-harming, started getting real into the fundamentalist stuff. She started like obsessively like reading the Bible, shit like that. And then she started like neglecting the kids. She stopped feeding the baby, or even that, or she even like tried to give the baby solid food and like almost choked her, things like that. So she really didn't know what the fuck was going on anymore. She like lost her fucking marbles. So at this point, she had to go back to the psychiatric hospital. So again, she's been in and out of psychiatric hospitals this whole time, like I said. So she's clearly not well. Now, in April of 2001, she had this new doctor. His name was Dr. Saeed. Now, she was treated shortly. She was there. I believe there was some kind of thing where she was in a psychiatric hospital, but she was only there for a week. And then they made her leave because Rusty's insurance would only cover a week of mental health stay. So they were like, oh, your insurance ran out. Bye. So it was like that kind of situation. But I don't know if that was this time or not. So she got treated with Dr. Saeed, and then she got released. But then, about a month later, she seemed to be doing okay, but then she went pretty much like catatonic. You know what I mean? Like she just went like that. And she actually planned on this one particular day in May of 2001 that this was the day she was going to drown her kids. She filled up the tub, but then she, for whatever reason, like decided she didn't do it. Now the next day they sent her back to the hospital, and the psychiatrist that talked to her thought that probably she had filled the tub up to drown herself because she was clearly suicidal. So she stays under the care of Dr. Saeed until the end of June of 2001. Now, Rusty left for work and left Andrea alone with the children, something which Dr. Saeed specifically told him that he should not do. He's like, she should be monitored all the time because Andrea had told him and told several other psychiatrists that she was afraid that she was going to harm her children because she was having all these intrusive ideations and she couldn't stop them, and so she was worried that she was going to do it. And so the doctors were like, please don't leave her alone, like have somebody watch her all the time, don't leave her alone with the children because she's afraid she's going to harm them. However, Rusty, in his infinite wisdom, decided that, oh well, I can leave her alone for an hour a day, it'll be good for her. It'll be good for her independence. She'll be able to do all, even though every psychiatrist was like, please don't. Like, please have somebody monitor her at all times, because obviously it's not safe. But of course, Rusty knows better. So he left her alone for an hour. Now, Andrea's mom was going to be coming over, like, later, like an hour after Rusty went to work, like, to stay with her and to, like, help her out with the kids and stuff like that. But Rusty thought, oh, she'll be fine for an hour alone with the kids. Guess what? This was the hour when she systematically drowned every one of her 5 children in the bathtub, one by one.
Man.
Started with the youngest one, drowned him in the tub, took him into the bedroom, put him on the bed, put a blanket over him. Did it to the next youngest one. And then...
Did the kids know? Probably the last ones did.
Well, okay. What happened with, like, the first... She started with the youngest boys. So, she did the first one, and then I think she did the second one. Now, I think the third one saw what she did the second one, but didn't really understand what was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he was just like, well, I don't want to take a bath. You know what I mean? It was just like that, and then she just picked him up and, like, put him in the tub.
And how old was this kid, maybe, the third one?
These were, like, 2, 3, 4, something like that. They were pretty little still.
Right.
The oldest one, like I said, was 7.
Yeah, that's old enough to know what the hell's going on.
And then the youngest one was 6 months. I think Mary was 6 months old. So she did the 3 younger boys. She drowned each one of them, and then she took them in the bedroom and, like, laid them out on the bed and, like, put sheets over them. And then she drowned the baby. And then she went to get her oldest kid, Noah, who was 7. Noah comes in the bathroom and sees the baby floating dead in the tub and says, "What's wrong with Mary?" And then he realizes what's going on and he runs.
Yeah.
And Andrea chases him through the house and grabbed him and like took him and drowned him in the tub like while the dead baby was floating.
Damn. So she's held his head underneath there.
Yeah.
Fuck. Is that all he said? He didn't say anything else, huh?
I think, well, I heard that he said, "I'm sorry." Like he thought that he had done something bad.
Man.
So the creepy thing about this, so she systematically does this, like the hour after Rusty leaves for work and then before her mom gets there. She calls the cops immediately. And you can hear the 911 call. Yeah. It's on YouTube. And she just has this very flat affect. And she basically says, she doesn't tell them what the problem is. She just says, "I need a police officer to come." And the 911 dispatcher says, "Well, what's the matter? Like, what do you need them for?" "I just need him to come." And they're like, "Well, is your husband there? Is somebody standing there, like, not letting you talk or something like that?" "No, I just need..." And then they're like, "Are you ill?" And then she says, "Yeah, I'm ill." Okay. And then they're like, "Well, do you need an ambulance?" "No, I need a police officer." "Yeah, send an ambulance." And then when the cops got there, she basically opened the door and told them what she did. She just told them straight out. Now, when they took her into custody, she basically said, and there's footage of this, like I watched the footage of her because she just looks pitiful. I mean, she just looks sick. Her hair is just all stringy. She looks like she's like not really there. You know what I mean? She tells the cops that, basically, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but she said her kids were not righteous and that they were going to, it was something like she thought that they were going to go to hell unless she did something about it, kind of thing. So it was almost like she believed
they were bad. That's weird.
Yeah, and she believed that she was like saving them.
Yeah.
By killing them. She really did seem to believe that. And she also seemed to believe that she was evil. Yeah. And that by killing them, she was going to send them to heaven. And then she would get the death penalty and she would go to hell, like as penance, like so they could go to heaven. She kind of believed that.
Okay, so she used religious ideology as a vehicle to get this done. She's malfunctioning. She's going to kill the kids.
Yeah.
So she has to make up a reason. And, because of the religion, she kind of pieced a narrative together. She's saving them.
Yeah.
Not killing them. She's saving them. She's bad. There's something wrong with her, so she's going to be punished. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, she's fucking off her fucking rocker.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not really...
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like her fault. I mean, obviously she had severe issues from when she was young.
Yeah, she's fucking trying to get help, and they're not helping her, really. Well,
not really.
The husband is not understanding the problem and then not helping. Look, man, I gotta say, I gotta blame the husband.
I kind of do,
Even
too.
though maybe he didn't know any better, I'm gonna tell you, you're a dumb motherfucker. You're just stupid. You should have known, man. The doctors told you. But
he thought he knew better.
He thought he knew better. There's something in his ideology. Well, Jesus wouldn't let that happen or some bullshit like that. And I have a Christian fucking background, all right? So you can't come crying to me. That's some fucking weird cult stuff. And sounds like really more selfish than anything else.
Big time.
Because you want a quiverful family because you think that that's what God is commanding you to do. Probably more like it's magnifying your own ego. Look at how many kids I have. You're in competition.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
You're in competition with other dudes in your cult. How many kids? You think you're fucking Noah or fucking Abraham, and you're not. All right. you're a douche.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, look at all my sperm produced.
Right.
I've got
And
great
you
sperm.
you got a decent job. You could have had your woman in style with all these kids. There's a girl just up the street here's got fucking 9 of them, and she's fucking having a good time. Got a big old house. The kids are having fun. You know, so you can do that, but you just can't stick them in a goddamn trailer.
I mean, like I said, you know, you gotta have the resources.
Kids, it's just like any other kind of wild animal. If you're gonna own a fucking lions or fucking tigers, we got those motherfuckers up the road here too, fucking breeding big cats. They got habitats for all that. If you're gonna have a big family, you gotta have a fucking habitat for that.
Yeah.
And get your wife some help. Get her some fucking girls to come in.
That's what I mean. He could probably have afforded.
Yeah.
To help, like, hire her a nanny or a maid or something.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that by yourself.
They got 12, 13, 14-year-old girls that'll come over and fucking take care of the kids and help the mama out. I know. I was raised in the conditions like that. My mom was constantly passing me off to Kimmy. I fucking loved Kimmy. She was like little Princess Leia. And she was about 13. Take me to the movies and stuff.
Well, I grew up, like, my parents, both of my parents always worked, you know, because they were broke and they needed money. So they were always working. So we just mostly spent the time with our grandparents. Like, you know, we stayed with our grandparents all the time.
Well,
which was fine with me.
My grandparents weren't around there. You know, we were out in California at that time, and it was just a whole block full of kids of different ages. And, you know, my parents were in their 20s at that time, and they wanted to have a night out, you know, whatever. They just hand me over to Kimmy.
Yeah.
And Kimmy was about 13. Take me to the fucking all-girl slumber parties and shit. Fucking listening to Led Zeppelin and crap back in the 70s. You know, I was fucking in hog heaven.
I mean, the thing about it, look, raising children, even under the best of circumstances, it's difficult. And having 5 children and not really having any support network, not having an identity of your own, like I said, it really does seem like Rusty kind of made her give up her own, because like I said, prior to that, she had a job. You know, she had her own apartment. She probably, I presume she had friends. She had other things like that. You can't, and that's another thing is that I feel like sometimes when you have kids, like people just expect you to like just, oh, now you're just mom and you're not like you anymore.
Yeah, no, it's not how it's
and
supposed
that's
to work.
really not, I mean, you need your own me time. It's not selfish or anything like that.
No.
You're still a person. Like
monotony will drive
separate from them.
Monotony will drive you crazy no matter who you are. And if you got any weaknesses in you, it'll even be more.
Yeah.
But you know, usually women that have big families have a varied experience. You know what I mean? They're not doing just that. You know what I mean? They got time off.
Yeah, I would hope not.
They get time
because
off.
you need a fucking break. Everybody needs a break, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
You know,
relatives come over and help.
Yeah.
Local girls come over and help.
And it just seemed to me that Andrea didn't have any help.
Yeah.
She was just expected to do everything herself.
Not a single story of another mom coming over and hanging out with her.
Like, her mom came over sometimes to help?
No, I'm talking about usually what happens is peer moms come and bring their kids together and they go do stuff.
And they all just like,
Yeah, and the women are hanging out and the kids are hanging out, you know what I mean? So it's a big, it's a big event, you know?
Yeah, which is good. That's a good idea.
Now
because
she's got friends who are in the same situation and they're just bonding over being moms and all these kids.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't understand what Rusty's fucking issue was, but motherfucker paid the price, cost him a family.
Yeah.
They paid for his stupidity, if you ask me. He's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So
and selfishness.
I put part of it on Rusty.
I do as well.
Dumb motherfucker.
And like I said, she was clearly, it would be different. Okay, I'm not saying it would be necessarily better. It would have been different if Andrea, for example, had been that severely mentally ill but hid it from everybody. But the thing about it was that she wasn't hiding it. I mean, she very clearly had several nervous breakdowns. She had several suicide attempts. She was in and out of psychiatric hospitals. She basically said outright, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt my children. You know, and she said that she'd had all these horrible thoughts about it and had thoughts about it for years and had kind of been planning it, and that was like it was causing her a lot of distress, and it seemed like Rusty was not really taking it all that seriously. Is what I'm saying. I think he thought that she could just snap out of it. But mental illness that severe, you can't really snap out of it. Which, I mean, and it just goes to show that, like, the drugs that when they finally did get her on a cocktail of drugs like antidepressants and antipsychotics and stuff that actually worked for her, and Rusty even said, oh my god, she's like back to normal, like when I first met her, you know, that should have continued. But no, Rusty had to have another kid. No, you have to have more babies, so go off all your medication. And you know, that's what fucking happened. So you know, yeah, she's the one that did it, and it's horrible, and just like hearing about it just made my fucking stomach clench. It was awful. And I'm not excusing it, but I'm just saying that the situation was just fucking tragic all around. It was just, and it could have been avoided. It could have been avoided. That's the most tragic thing. Because she did ask for help, and it just seemed like she didn't really get it, or she didn't really get it, you know, in a timely fashion that could have, like, saved those children. It didn't have to happen. You know, but it's just fucked up. It's just like it's really one of the saddest cases that I've ever read about, because you know, in the Susan Smith case, like we don't really feel bad for her. I mean, because it seemed like she did the shit for just cold selfish reasons. As much as she denies
there was no warning.
Yeah,
this one had a lot of warning signs.
That's what I'm saying.
This could have been prevented.
Yeah, because like I said, she had numerous nervous breakdowns, numerous times in psychiatric hospitals, you know, numerous visits with psychiatrists who knew that she was having these thoughts about harming her children.
And he's telling her that she's going to have more kids. So she's got no
even after the
out.
Psychiatrist specifically said, please, please, please.
Yeah. So he's piling more stress on her. But he's like, well, that's what women do. That's
their job.
That's their job.
That's what he really did seem to think that. That's the women's role, because that whole biblical thing.
Yeah, because that's what he read.
And he's like, well, that's their role, so it's like, so if you can't do it, then you must be defective in some way. I guess that's probably what he was thinking.
What's funny is that they're always going to the Old Testament, and every story in the Old Testament is an allegory to another religion that was had become defunct by the Canaanites, you know, and the Judaism, you know. In other words, like, I saw one analysis that Abraham actually was, the story of Abraham was modeled after an older religion that Canaanites believed in, and the gods of that religion kind of got demoted into patriarchs and the founders. So because they didn't want to throw their old religion away, they just reinterpreted it as other stuff, which that kind of makes sense. It's just like comic book nerds fighting over what's canon and what isn't canon. Hey, don't throw that out. That's the original old Star Wars, New Hope. Don't throw that out. We'll just put that into. We'll just change the narrative and put that in there. Still, you know. So just because Old Testament patriarchs were described as that doesn't mean that those guys ever even existed. You know. So you're trying to emulate mythological characters. Like, there was no Moses. It's a mythological character. There was no Abraham. There was no Cain or Abel. So why are you trying? This is all mythology.
And you're trying to shoehorn, like, people's actual lives
into mythology,
into fictional stories.
Fictional stories, to teach morals, or to give an explanation of where certain things came from. You know, each one of those stories has different meaning to it. But there was no Moses.
No, I don't believe so.
No.
Like I said, they were all just like it was like comic books, like superhero
like
stories. Jeffy Hart said, I doubt Rusty cared about his former family when he remarried. Yeah, he just seems like that kind of dude. He's just like, oh well. I'll get another one.
Well, the devil got him, or some shit like that, or
probably.
It was God's will.
Yeah. So the thing, okay, so Andrea obviously did not hide the fact that she had killed her children, and she was quite open about saying that. She thought that it was because, like I said, essentially she thought that she was saving them, or that they weren't righteous and that she had failed and that she was evil, and that was the only way that she could redeem anyone was by eliminating them. So she confessed to that. They put her on trial. They were going to try and get not guilty by reason of insanity defense. But like I said, this is Texas. And it's very, very difficult. It's a very high bar to clear, particularly in Texas. And basically the only criteria being, you know, you had to know that you had to not know what you were doing was wrong. And in 2001, at her first trial, the jury didn't think that she was technically the legal definition of insane. So they actually found her guilty of murder, and they were going to try and do the death penalty like they did Susan Smith, but jury said no, we don't want to go that far. So they didn't do that, but they sentenced her to life in prison with parole eligibility after 40 years. However, in 2006, her conviction was actually reversed. It was overturned because of this weird little detail. I mean, it wasn't weird because it would have been like prejudicial at the initial trial. They discovered that one of the psychiatrists who had testified for the prosecution, whose name was Dr. Park Dietz, he had actually given testimony during the first trial in 2001 that perhaps Andrea had gotten the idea to kill her children and then try to get an insanity defense from an episode of Law and Order in which a woman drowned her kids and then got off with an insanity defense. And he said that at the trial, which, like I said, it doesn't sound like much because it's like, oh, she just saw it on a TV show, but that is very prejudicial against the defendant. And they discovered that this episode of Law and Order did not exist. There was later an episode of Law and Order that was loosely based on the Andrea Yates case, but that was 2 years later. So they're like, so there's no way that she could have seen a Law and Order episode.
Didn't exist.
I mean, I don't know if he made it up or if he just misremembered something, like, and he was just pulling it out of his butt. But because of that testimony that he'd given, the conviction was overturned, and they gave her a new trial in 2006 because, like I said, they thought that it could be prejudicial because that didn't exist. So it's like she couldn't have got the idea from a TV show that didn't exist. You know what I mean? So they actually redid the trial in 2006. And at this trial, the jury found that the definition of insanity was met. They determined that she did... It was almost kind of like, yeah, she knew what she was doing was wrong, kind of, but it's like she wasn't really in her right mind and she had, like, delusional reasons for doing what she did. You know what I mean? So it's like they thought that that met the criteria. So they allowed her to do, they came back with that verdict, like not guilty by reason of insanity, but they, under the stipulation that she be sent to a mental hospital, which is what happened. So they actually did send her to a mental hospital. Later on, like a few years later, they sent her to a lower security one. And as far as I know, she is still there to this day. Like, she's still there. And she does not appear to want to get out, even though they have said that she may petition to be released. Not necessarily that she will be, but they said she can petition, but she always waives the right to do so. She does not seem to want to get out.
She's happy where she's at.
That's what I mean. She seems to be doing all right where she's at.
And how old would she be now?
Let's see. Ooh, I don't know.
Coming back into society after this much time, it'd be pretty traumatic for somebody who's been in there for that long. But she's probably afraid to come out, and she's probably pretty comfortable and living a pretty regimented existence. Yeah. You know what I mean? A life.
And that might be good for her.
She might have friends in there, and have little friends.
Yeah, I mean, she does have, like, psychiatrists and stuff like that, and she has, like, friends in there, like, people that come and visit her.
Yeah.
And she does seem to be doing all right.
Right. And she has a religious background, so she's probably seeing this as penance that she shouldn't come. You know what I mean?
I definitely do think, because she does seem to have that mindset, and she probably still has that after all this time, is that she seemed to genuinely believe that she was the devil.
Yeah.
That Satan was inside her.
I think I'd let her out.
And that,
I think I'd let her out, actually. Even though she's the one that fucking upset me the most, I'd probably let her out. I said, she's not a threat. And I don't
this,
think she
was,
like I said,
she was
this,
in
control of her faculties.
Right. This is why this case is complex.
Yeah.
Like, obviously what she did was fucking horrific. I mean, just, like, thinking about it just makes me want to scream.
She was mentally ill.
But she couldn't... I don't think she could help it.
Yeah.
And there were so many
almost
other...
kind of like the female cats. When they have litters and they put them under a bunch of stress, they go crazy and kill their own kittens. I've heard of it, never seen it, but they say that they do if they're in an unsafe environment. And yeah, I don't really make big distinctions between humans and animals. I believe that they're the same.
I mean, to an extent.
The only
yeah.
difference is the proportions. In other words, like some of them humans have a little bit more logic and intelligence than other animals, but not that much more.
No,
The difference in the genes between a human and a chimp is not that much. Just a small tweak makes a much bigger brain. But animals are conscious too. They have feelings, you know what I mean? And they do weird things. And humans do things basically according to programming. You know, you can break your programming if you understand it, but you're still not as free as you think you are. And we may not actually be all that conscious. We think we are, but a spider might think it is too.
Yeah, we don't really know.
So that's kind of why, even though, you know, having background in hunting and shit like that, you know, I mean, I'm always very cautious about what kind of animals I'll kill for food. You know, I don't believe in trapping, and only prey animals like deer and things that propagate in large numbers. I'm not into this shit like killing cats, like, you know what I mean, bobcats and coyote, or those are dogs and cats, man. They just happen to be living out in the wild, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, even when it comes to animals, you got to be careful, because, you know, they do have little personalities.
Yeah.
You know, I feel bad if I hit a raccoon, you know what I mean? Because raccoons are charming little things, you know, more intelligent than a cat, kind of monkey-like and friendly. They're not mean. Now, you get one cornered and you try to grab it, yeah, you're going to get tore the fuck up, you know?
Well, I mean, that'd happen if you do that to a human, too.
But, you know what I mean? There's a lot of videos of raccoons that come in people's houses and beg for food, and they let you pet them once they get to know you, you know, and they're nice little creatures. Humans, I put, are all in that same spectrum. You know, we're not that different from them. And maybe what happened to her is something that you would kind of reminds me of something I'd see in the animal kingdom, where you got a female, she's in a bad environment, she's unhealthy, which kind of is another additional factor. She doesn't have good mental health, and she can't solve this problem that she's having, so she self-destructs.
Yeah.
Destroys her litter.
Yeah.
It's like something a cat would do.
Like I said, that's kind of... It was just a conflation of, like, the worst possible circumstances.
And she rationalizes it and makes a narrative around why she's doing religious motifs and shit. But animals are probably making weird motifs and explanations of why they're doing what they're doing. Don't underestimate animals. Animals kind of have feelings, and they kind of think, and they can imagine things. Because you see a cat playing with something, imagining it's a lizard. You know, I know what Pookie's imagining, so they can imagine. They may not be they're not imagining correctly, you know, but I think when a cat is killing her litter, you know, I think it's just like, these babies won't make it because I'm, you know, under threat. So.
And I think that's probably exactly what Andrea was thinking.
Yeah, because I have to run and I can't leave these here. They'll just starve. So it kills them. The cat kills them.
Yeah.
You know, sad.
I mean, yeah.
But it was something like that. But she comes up with a creative way of
I mean, that's what humans do. They rationalize their
Yeah,
actions.
that's kind of what I'm imagining.
I mean, that sounds like pretty plausible because, like I said, it was just like a perfect storm of shitty circumstances.
Yeah.
Not only did she have a long history of mental illness, which, like I said, was no secret, like everybody knew about it, but then she ended up in this situation that just made it worse and worse and worse and worse. And like I said, to her credit, she knew it was getting worse. She seemed cognizant of it and was trying to get help. It wasn't like she was trying to keep it from anybody.
Yeah.
She was trying to, like...
She's trapped. She can't get out between these different forces, so she's a woman that's been kind of stripped of any choice, and she's being told that she's going to have more and more children, which means the pressure is going to mount and mount. There's no escape. Yeah. So she has to get... She's in danger. She's got to get rid of the litter and herself, and she's got to come up with some kind of weird...
Yeah. That's probably exactly what was happening.
And then, like, you know, after the homicides are over, she now is calling for the police, which is the ultimate help, and they'll take her away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she definitely felt like she deserved to be taken away.
Yeah.
Which is why I think she doesn't want to ever get out of the mental hospital, because...
and she reinterprets it as she's going to pay penance for her sin.
Yeah.
Which an animal might do that in a certain way. You don't know what the internal world of an animal is like. But I'm sure they're thinking things like that, but more like a child
Yeah.
would think of it, you know.
Yeah, I definitely think like the way that Pookie interacts and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Pookie's our cat, if you're new
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Facial expressions. And,
She basically, I mean, she comes across like a kid, like a toddler.
yeah, like a little toddler.
She does the same things that a kid would do. She can deceive like a kid
Yeah.
would. You know, you can tell what she wants just like the way a kid would.
You can read facial expressions.
Yeah, like
You
she
can
can't talk,
Yeah.
but you know what you can figure out what she
surprise,
wants.
anger. You know, you can see no or yes, like no. You're shaking the
I
head.
don't want to do
No.
that.
So, you know. So that means that there's an internal world
Yeah.
of ideation,
there has to be.
imagination. There's an internal dialogue happening in there. And I imagine there's all kinds. There's definitely imagination should be waiting for us by the door.
Yeah.
So they'll be back. They'll be back. So that's faith right there. So there's a lot of advanced stuff.
Yeah, when you really think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have faith that they will be back. So, you know, it's weird.
Like you said, I don't think there's a huge gulf between the way that humans and
The difference
animals
is just
think.
in proportions.
Yeah. And like I said, humans are a lot better at rationalizing.
And
their-
making up excuses.
Their weird ass behaviors.
But the behavior,
like later on.
but the behavior, the default behavior, especially in younger people, is animal. Very
Yeah.
much so. The guys act like male animals of any other species. It's just more dressed up. The same thing with all the females and stuff. It's hard to break your own programming, and it's only because what you're programmed to do sometimes doesn't work anymore because you've inherited mechanisms and programs that are so old and so ancient. They're not even human ancestors that you inherited that from, you know. Just other mammals.
Yeah. Jeffy Art said, how tragically ironic that she's getting better care than she was with her husband or in that religion. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very sad.
Now,
I forgot
wasn't
to...
all the women of that religion, though, weren't like this. It was that particular one. And she was weak.
I mean, it seemed like... I don't
She had
know how many followers this weird street preacher had.
Yeah.
They showed on this documentary that I was watching about her, they showed, like, some footage of this loon.
Yeah.
Like and he would like him and his family, because I guess he was family and some of his followers, and they would just like go out in the street and like dress up in silly costumes, and they were one of those ones that were they're kind of like Westboro Baptist Church. It seemed like they were kind of like that kind of crazy.
Although that's not a real church.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean.
They're
but
just trying to get lawsuits.
Yeah, but it was kind of like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Victor says my hamster ate her babies. Yeah, I had a hamster that did that too.
Yeah.
That's pretty common, and I think it's because it's the stress of like them being in these little cages and
Yeah, and they go, there's no future for these.
yeah, it
Not
happens a
enough room.
lot actually.
Right.
So like you said, I think that was like a good way of putting it. That might have been the situation here.
Yeah.
What was going on here? Oh, I forgot to mention that another thing that Rusty, like other than making her have babies all the time and make her live in a fucking 350-foot bus,
Yeah.
was that he told her that she was only allowed 2 hours a week to do what she wanted. The rest of the time she had to be serving.
Yeah, he's full of shit. No, that dude's full of shit.
That's what I heard.
That's funny. He was probably making really good money.
I mean, he must have been.
Wonder where all that money went.
Hookers and blow.
Yeah, hookers and blow probably. How much you want to bet he had girlfriends?
Those type of dudes always do.
Yeah.
It seems like there's like, oh, I want to knock this woman up and have her have all my fucking crotch fruit.
Yeah.
And then like have her stay home and clean up my house and wash shit diapers and stuff. But I'm going to go out and stick my dick in whatever.
How much you want to bet? Old boy had a mistress in a nice apartment that he spent a lot of time with her.
It would
down
not
West-
shock me, to
And
be
then
honest.
he's got-
that would be right on brand.
Yeah, and then he's got his broodmare living in that damn bus.
Yeah, that would
He
be right
comes
on
in
brand.
there like fucking holy man.
Because it's
Yeah.
always, those types of dudes are always like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because they feel like,
And the
oh,
mistress
well,
is 22.
right.
Yeah.
Because they feel like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm righteous, so they can do whatever the fuck they
Yeah.
want to. Like you said, and they always like justify
Well,
it.
if you're an Old Testament patriarch, not only do you have fucking a quiverful family, you got multiple wives.
Right. And it's totally okay. It's right there in the Bible.
Yeah, yeah.
It says I can do it.
So
It's allowed, and
probably
you
something
and
like
you
that.
can't bitch about it, woman.
Yeah. You know, men wrote that shit.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I read the Bible when I was like
Yeah.
young, because I felt like I should, even though I was an atheist from a young age. But like I was like, well, I should probably read it. And I read the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, men wrote this shit. Yeah. That's for sure.
Well, I think...
I was like, no thanks, I'm not going along with this.
I think polyamory is the default setting for men, actually. If left to their own devices, they'll collect a whole harem of women, and they'll love them all. But you gotta understand there's limits to shit, and fucking, come on, you know.
Well, and...
At least Islam, which they've fucking ratified. They said, yeah, you can do that. They said, but you gotta be limited to 3, and you gotta treat them all equally, and you gotta keep them in separate houses before you can do that. So that means only rich guys can do it. You know. So at least they thought of that. It says you can't have 9 of them up in the same fucking house. You know.
You're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, it's for trouble. They're gonna gang up on you anyway. You know. Although the Mormons some of those Mormon cults were doing that. Not all Mormon, you know, the Mormon cults were doing that.
Yeah.
We did a whole show on that. Some of these dudes in their fucking 90s with like fucking 30 teenage wives and shit.
It's fucked up.
And those girls don't even know what sex is.
No. How would they? They were raised in a completely isolated,
and this 90-something-year-old
environment.
Living skeleton is going, come on, baby, let's make love. And
like,
they're like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? And they were just totally, like, what the hell's going on? What is this
wrinkly
little
old
man doing?
scrote coming at you? Gross.
Damn.
But that's what I mean. It's like, well, the thing that kills me is that, look, I have no problem with polyamory in general or anything like that. Is like I said, as long as everybody's on the same page, you can do whatever you want. Problem is that a lot of these dudes, like the Mormons and like a lot of these weird fundamentalist cults, like the Duggars and all that kind of shit, is their whole thing is like, oh, well, the women have to stay home and serve us and be broodmares and stuff, but we can do whatever they want. But they can't.
They can't, though. Right.
They can't, though.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's where I draw the line.
Right.
Like I said, you can do anything sexually
you want. If you're going to have polyamory, then the women have to be free, too. Then the women can do what they want also.
So I don't I don't like the hypocrisy is what I don't like. Right. I don't like this whole, well, I can do what I want, but you can't.
Yeah. And that's bullshit. That's one thing I can give Tony and Aleda. That's my ex and the guy that I introduced her to. Yeah. They're great. They're great. But they're polyamorous. They go to fucking swinger clubs and shit like that. They're trying to get us to go all the time. They videotape it and fucking send us fucking okay, whatever.
We've seen videos.
At least with them, it's just wide open.
Yeah.
She can date whoever she wants. He dates whoever she
wants. That's what I mean. Everybody's on the same page. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that kind of stuff as long as nobody's going behind somebody's back, as long as nobody's like, as long as it's not one person thinking it's one way and then this other person's doing this other shit. Right. It's not so much the sex that I disapprove of, it's the lying. Yeah. Like the betrayal.
Not only the lying, but also the like, all right, it's Saturday night, you stay here, I'm going to go out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And fucking go out with my girlfriend, and who are you going to, you're not going? Okay, you stay here. They do that though. I don't really. I'm like, man, I couldn't do that to Jen.
Yeah, you know that would be pretty shitty.
Jen, I'm gonna go date blah 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 today. We're going to the club. What are you gonna do? Because you're not coming with us. What kind of shit is that? You know what I mean? Imagine that. I just couldn't do that. But
I would punch you right in your face.
But they do that.
Yeah.
It'd be different if like we're all going.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like if it was that situation, we'll all go as a group.
We're all going. Yeah.
Like, you know, it's all a fun time.
It's all a big party, you know what I mean? But
like I said, I have no problem with that at all. I just don't like the people having like different expectations or like some people thinking, oh, well, I thought it was like this and it's not like that. Like
I just couldn't, even if it was the open situation, I couldn't leave my woman at home. Like, you stay here. I'm going to dinner with fucking Sally. I just couldn't do that.
Sally of the Sally Beauty Empire.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of that.
I don't understand how they do it, but I guess they don't get jealous. I don't know. I know Aleta though. I figured I would probably fucking burn her ass up. That motherfucker.
Well, see, I kind of would, and I know not all women are the same.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of women that are into the whole polyamory thing, and they say that they don't really give a shit. But I don't know. I always kind of feel like whenever there's like a polyamory or like a triad situation, I always feel like I was like, was that the dude's idea? I feel like it was probably the dude's idea. Yeah. And like she just went along with it. She's like, meh, okay. I know that's not. I know that's not the case at all.
When I was going out with her, she was like that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's the case in her situation. I'm just saying that a lot of times, like we've known some people. We've known some people that were in like, you know, like kind of triad situations.
Yeah.
And I always got the suspicion. I always had the suspicion that it was like the dude's fault or like the dude's idea.
Fault, yeah.
Well, the dude's fault. The dude's idea.
Yeah, I know who
and
you're
like
thinking
she
of.
just went along with it
Yeah.
just to make him happy, but she didn't really like it.
And then the girls start fighting.
Right. So I always just kind of feel like that happens a lot. And we know a couple of couples that have been in long-term triads.
Yeah.
Like, not with the same person, but it's like, you know,
Different ones.
There's a couple, but then they always have like a different third.
Yeah, there's a married couple that always has a girlfriend.
Yeah. And
They last years.
They do last years.
They last years, yeah.
But they're, you know, successive. But they
But
you know,
they all live together though.
Right.
They all
They'll
go
have
out
one that
together.
they'll have one that lives with them for
Yeah.
like a year or two or something like that, and they'll
Yeah.
all go out together
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But even they said that the main problem with is always jealousy. They're
Yeah.
always like, it's usually like the third person will come in
Yeah.
and will want to like kind of take over the shit, or there's
Yeah.
always kind of that
Tries to get rid of the
dynamic.
original-
Tries to get rid of the original
wife.
one,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. So there's always that kind of jockeying for position.
But in that situation, it's not him, it's her.
Yeah.
She likes the girls.
Yeah.
She's bringing them in.
Yeah. She's the one bringing the girls.
She can't live without them.
Right. So they always have one.
He's like, okay, whatever. He just, you know.
Yeah, he's kind of. He's not indifferent, but he's just kind of like.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Yeah. Bonus pussy. You know, just like that. She's cool. Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, he's not real.
But it's not him, though. It's her.
Yeah, it's her. But like I said, that's an unusual situation.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that for years. They might be older than we are.
Yeah, they've been doing that as long as we've known. We've known them for 14 years at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And they were doing it a long time before we met them.
So like I said, it's not so much like what people do. It's just the fact that if everyone's adults and everyone is on the same page and everybody knows what the situation is and everyone is okay with it, no one's being coerced into anything or nothing like that, then it's fine. Do whatever the fuck you want.
I still couldn't go on a solo date and leave my girlfriend back home.
Well, I would hope not.
No, I couldn't do it.
I would be mad if you did that.
Yeah. I think anybody would.
You would be mad if I did that.
Yeah, I think anybody would.
Well, I wouldn't do that anyway.
Yeah, I think anybody would. If you're gonna start doing polyamory, it's a big family. Everybody's together all the time.
Well, if you're gonna start
can't
doing that, I'm a
understand
big advocate of
Yeah.
if you're gonna do that, then you need to like get together and have like a serious talk and be like, is everybody like, and what are the parameters of this?
Right.
Like, what are the rules? Because there have to be rules.
Yeah.
You can't just do the fuck whatever. It's like, what are the expectations?
Yeah.
You know, so you really have to have like a long discussion about that kind of
Yeah.
shit, like before you get into.
Yeah.
Like, oh, are we gonna bring another person into
Yeah.
this? Like, are you gonna open the relationship up? You have to like know like what all the parameters
And in the cases that we're talking about, the girls are all bisexual.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like there isn't any exclusivity in the relationships. They're all doing each other. But they're also going on solo dates. That's weird.
Yeah, Tom thinks that's weird.
I think that's weird.
Well,
That's the weird part to me.
Yeah.
Not so much the sex. It's
Well, because that's all happening together usually.
Yeah. It's just like, okay, you stay here. We're going out. We're going to this club.
Right.
You're not invited. You're just you stay home and wait for us to come home.
Well, that's what I
You need
mean.
to go get another date.
Like this,
Some shit like that.
The second
right?
you told me I wasn't invited somewhere, I'd be like, "Bye, dude."
What the fuck?
I don't like that. I do not.
Yeah.
I don't like being left out.
Yeah. I would feel left out as a motherfucker. I gotta stay here while she's out with dude or the girl, whatever.
Right.
You know.
I wouldn't do that to you. That's
her
shitty.
and Beverly are gonna go fucking. I gotta stay here. I gotta go to another club. What, I'm gonna hang out at the fucking Oasis? What the fuck's going on?
He's gonna go to the Oasis.
With the bikers? What the fuck?
But like I said, I just think that's a shitty thing to do in general. Whether
Yeah.
it's just like your partner or like your friend or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't like leaving people out, and
Right.
I don't like being left out either.
Right.
So it's like I wouldn't do that to somebody else because
Right.
that's like a shitty thing to do to somebody. So you know what I mean? Like I said, if everybody's okay with it, fine. But
Yeah.
I would think it was weird.
Me and Jenna messed around. We never did that shit. We were always all together.
Yeah.
When we did-
Like I said, I would
did-
never do that.
Yeah.
It's just not something that would ever occur to me, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's just not something I would do.
Although the girls we're talking about didn't have any expectations of us. Just come get it. Go get her. Go get her and go to the club.
Yeah, that's
They didn't
what I
make any
mean.
demands on us.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a
Like a
situation where we went
Casual
out,
shit.
everyone was just kind of drinking, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, let's go back to and then
Yeah.
everybody was having a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It wasn't
we-
like any kind of
Yeah, we also just considered them buddies too. weren't
right.
they? So-
It wasn't really. Yeah, it's not like anybody was gonna steal anybody
Yeah, right,
or nothing like that. It was
Yeah.
just everybody was kind of drinking, and we were
Yeah.
having a good time, and,
laughing at each other and shit.
right. It was just that kind of
Yeah.
situation. It wasn't like anything super serious,
Right.
but you know. All right. She Was Kissed by Fire said, I made a throuple in The Sims. Talk about tons of drama. That's what I mean. I'm always just kind of like, I admire people that can keep that going for a really long time, because I'm like, holy shit. Like, just being in a relationship with one other person, I mean, that's a job in itself. Kind of, I mean, you know, it just depends on what. It's not a job, but I'm just saying that it's like, it's, you know, a lot to deal with, but it's like, and then bringing a third person in with all of those dynamics, you know, that's always going to be.
Well, Tony
like,
and Aleda, it's not 3, it's like 4 or 5.
Well, yeah.
And
I can't imagine.
Of different sexes, so it's, I guess it's kind of like not being in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, if there's that many people,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like a big clusterfuck.
You're just living together and just doing whatever you want to do.
Right, so it's just kind of like not even a concern.
With a species of person that thinks like that, and they're all just kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, it's, you know, some
Whatever.
people are like that, and that's fine.
I'm not really built for that.
I'm not either.
That's
It's
too fucking...
It's not really my thing.
Yeah, that's too slutty for me. I'm not that slutty.
You're slutty, but you're not that slutty.
I'm slutty. I'm not that slutty.
Like I said, like we've you know, messed around with that, but it's just kind of like not just like as together and like nothing seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like no long term.
Yeah, they were cool chicks. They were
like
just,
I said, we're just kind of like fucking around.
Yeah.
Just because we were out and it was fun.
Yeah.
But we didn't like
try to build a relationship around.
No. Like that wasn't even considered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Just
yeah,
fun.
I'm just not really that kind of person, I guess.
Yeah.
But no judgment if like some people are, because I know some people are, but I'm not, and you're not either, really.
No, not really like that.
Yeah. Like I said, I was just thinking how funny it would be, how mad if I came in tomorrow and said, "Hey, I'm going on a date with I don't know, Dave or somebody like that." I don't know anybody.
You're like, what? You stay here or go somewhere else. Don't come to the club.
Don't
come
come
to the
there.
club. Fucking yeah.
You might see something.
You're
you know.
cramping my style.
Can you imagine if I just came in and told you that shit? That is cold as fuck.
Cold fucking blooded.
That is cold as fuck.
Yeah.
I would never do that. That's shitty. But yeah. All right. So it's getting pretty late.
Yeah.
I gotta go to bed soon because I gotta get up early. But yeah. So hopefully,
it is late.
yeah, you guys enjoyed this show this
Yeah.
evening. We mostly kind of stayed on topic, which
Yeah.
I'm impressed by us. Even though we've been on for a while, we've been on for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah. So cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a very depressing topic, but I mean, I found it interesting, so hopefully you guys found it interesting too. So, yeah, the next time we're going to stream is our Sidetrack show, which is going to be Friday night, so that should be fun. We'll have some drinks and talk about some more bullshit.
Probably talk about what we did on StreamMate.
Talk about what we did on StreamMate. Because I know that's what the Sidetrack show is going to be coming like, stories from StreamMate, because we streamed on there last night.
Yeah.
Not for very long, though.
No.
We were just only on for like an hour and 15 minutes,
Yeah.
something like that, because I was kind of tired. I've been at work all day. But yeah, so we did. It wasn't that crazy. Well,
No.
I don't know. We
It's
did.
funny.
It was like kind of funny. So we might talk about that on Friday.
Pick
night,
up a
but-
quick $25.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that you can just kind of hop on there and just be like,
Make
hey, let's do a couple like,
fucking little shows real quick and
Yeah.
get $25
and then like,
for less than an hour, for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes worth of work.
yeah, then it's just like, oh, okay, well
Yeah.
that was $25 I didn't have before, so that's
Yeah.
nice. I got my first check from there today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. So they send a check every week if you have over a certain amount. So I was
Yeah.
like, that's nice. I was waiting to see because it took a while for
If
it
you
to.
hit that bitch full time, we'd make a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, eventually we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Like, because I would actually like to segue into that
Like
as soon
30
as
hours.
possible, and do it like a full-time job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then
Yeah, we're going to break it up.
because
though.
we've been streaming. We wanted to go on there a few times, like at different times, like of the day, different days of the week, and see if it was consistent, like a consistent amount of money per hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
And it does seem to be.
Yeah.
So I was like, even when it's real slow, I mean, you usually like $20 an hour is like baseline. Like, so a lot of times you make more than that.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, as long as it's at least that, then we could do this full time, and
Yeah,
it would be.
Bill's wife, my friend Bill, his wife is, her name is Amy Quinn. You can look her up. She's a porn star. She streams, and she's not a big porn star. She's a local one. There's a lot of her out there, though. She streams 30 hours a week. I'm not going to say how much she makes, but he told me.
It's
I
a
was
lot.
like, yeah, and then he said rock bottom average is 20 an hour. That's the rock bottom average.
which is not bad at
Says
all.
in the winter time, at certain hours, it's $90 an hour
Yeah.
because there's just a lot of traffic in there. But because it's summer, there isn't a lot of traffic.
Yeah, we kind of hit a slow period. But
Yeah.
even then, it's like every time we go on, we generally average about $20 an hour or a little bit more.
At 30 hours a week, she makes six figures.
Yeah.
It's about twice what Jen's making right
Yeah,
now.
at my regular job.
Yeah.
So, like I said,
Very tempting.
it is, well,
And
yeah.
you got to approach it like a job, and we're the right kind of people for it in terms of the work discipline and
Yeah, I mean, I would keep you in line.
costumes
Well,
and-
look, it's like I've run this shit
Yeah.
since 2016.
Yeah.
Keeping everybody on schedule, keeping
gotta
everything,
be-
doing
yeah.
all the research, doing all the cards and setting everything up and all that other
you got
kind
to
of
have
stuff. I can do it.
lighting and sets, which we have, costumes, fucking what do you call it? Audio visual editing skills. So we have all that, graphic design, and we're also going to move on to other platforms like mini vids and stuff because we have a bunch of video material that we can't sell on
Stream it, yeah.
We got a pretty decent catalog built up.
Yeah.
'Cause we've been shooting. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, like
Got
on the
better
on the
each-
weekends we usually shoot like a video or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And
But-
some of it's funny. Some of it's funny.
But yeah, so like I said, we'll
Yeah.
probably talk about that more on
Yeah.
Friday. We can talk about like what we did on there. I don't know if we're gonna stream tomorrow night or not, like on Stream 8, but we'll see how I feel when I get home. I might be too tired, but we'll see.
All right, Kiss by Fire. Thanks for catching the live.
Yeah, I'm glad you came
Yeah,
by. Glad all of you guys came by.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for hanging out with us this evening. Thanks for super chats and all of that. And we'll see you guys again on Friday night for the Sidetrack Show. Good night.